I do.
Erin, I just got your email because I've been in meetings.
Of course.
12:30. Yeah. well,
Okay,
Sorry, just.
It's okay.
welcome to the July 1st regular meeting of the Town of Rochester Town Board. Would you stand for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kate, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilwoman Allen. Sure. Councilman Hagen DePew.
Here.
Councilman Hewitt.
Here.
Councilman Paddock is absent. Supervisor Baby.
Here. First, welcome everybody back to in-person meetings. It's been a long time. Happy to have that back. We will open first for any public comment. Is
Mike, I
anyone?
was gonna ask, since there's not much public, could we move this down and see who comes? And move it maybe below where we do the funds, the expenditures.
We can do that.
Thank you.
We can absolutely do that. Mary Lou, then we'll start with you. You're
Okay.
turning for the town report.
I see here you have code violations. The letters that we received last month, I talked to Jerry about them. One is in court already. The other one, I don't really want to discuss here, but I'd be happy to have an attorney's meeting with you afterward, or I can just send you all a confidential memo on it, whichever you'd prefer. Maybe if that way the meeting goes.
Yeah, why don't we decide at the end of the meeting if we want to meet with Mary Lou after the meeting, or if we
Right.
just want to accept her to email us. I always prefer the meeting because then it can be a question and answer as opposed to you email us and then we email you back and then you email us. So anything else?
No,
Okay.
no.
Kate, town clerk, tax collector report.
Both our tax collection season ended June 1st, and we collected a total of $6,935,424.42 for the year. We turned back over to the Department of Finance $647,972.48. And my records on my system goes back to 2014, and that is the lowest turnover since 2014 back to the county. So that is pretty impressive. $31,647.57 were collected in penalties and advertising fees. I want to thank Christina Ferrara and Tina Post for all their help during the tax season. It was definitely a trying season trying to figure out online payments and how we're going to process things and fit them into our daily schedule, but it worked out. And for town clerk, today was the 1st of July, so I wasn't able to finish the report, but from what it looked like, we were at $56,048.28 for the month of June, which is also quite high in revenue. A lot of that is from the building department. And that's all I have.
Okay, just going to take a moment to share our agenda on the screen here for people. Okay, the financial report. Revenue, as Kate said, is because today is the first month, is not compiled yet. It will be in the next couple days. Expenditures, there is a correction on there. It says abstract 4 of 2021. It should say abstract 6. My apologies. The general fund payout for June was 61,500. Did I skip? I did skip. Jeff, I'm so sorry. Skipped right over you.
It's okay.
We'll let you please give your highway superintendent report.
Well, basically, the boys have went up to their normal summertime stuff. I wanted to thank town of Warsing, the town of Marbletown, and town of Olive, town of Rosendale. We managed to have 21 trucks hauling for us the other day. And the boys would do 1,800 tons of full mix pavement in 2 days, which is quite a feat in itself.
Amazing.
And I'm gonna have those same towns, including town of New Paltz. Next week, we're gonna put down 1,000 tons up in Rocky Mountain Road, which is just about as far away as Yeagerville was when we were up there last week. So I just wanted to thank all those towns. If it weren't for them, it would cost an ungodly amount of money to hire that many trucks to
Yeah,
haul that much material up
Yeah.
there in 2 days.
and it really is a great, the shared services that the county has put together with neighboring towns of sharing each other's equipment and personnel. When these larger projects, it's a huge cost savings. So,
Yes, phenomenal job by all. That's what it
Yeah,
really was.
yeah. And thank the guys for all they've done.
Absolutely.
Something else, I had been reached out to by a resident about a yield sign at, what was it?
It was the intersection
Medicahonts,
of Lower Whitfield and Metcalf.
Lower Whitfield, Medicahonts, that has been a yield sign for forever. And they asked if it could be looked at for a stop sign. Jeff looked at it and it has been changed to a stop sign. That's where they intersect with each other because of the increased traffic with Arrowwood and Westwind. Jeff felt it was warranted, so that is in and installed. And thank you for reacting so quickly. Supervisor's report for the month is filed with the town clerk, and now I will give the amounts. General fund was $61,588.60. The highway fund, $29,088.78. The street lighting fund is $419.86. And the escrow fund paid out $1,657.50. Monthly correspondence, the letters that we received regarding properties and issues requesting us to look at. We received replies to my calls to Camp Ravtov. And we received this one from Open Space Institute. I didn't make a copy because it was quite lengthy, but I emailed it to everybody. And I suspect that's the one you want to talk to us about. But
Now, what, I was talking about the code violations. That's not
Okay,
code violation, but
okay.
We can talk about that too.
okay. The COVID-19 report, there are, as of yesterday, 2 cases still in the town of Rochester. There are 19 in the county. There was the first occurrence of the Delta strain in the county within the past several days. I don't remember exactly which day. They are not reporting which town that is in, but things are definitely looking up from where we were even a couple months ago. So thank you, everybody, for all your patience and enduring that. Ban updates, we received the money, we had our closing virtually today for the $150,000 ban for the Mill Hook Bridge. The money was received in our bank account this afternoon, and that will go to pay the cost of the Mill Hook Bridge. We got that ban at 0.75% interest, which is a big difference from the previous bans which have been 3 and 3.5%. So, and I'm anticipating that we have 5 years to pay it off, but I'm anticipating that we will sort of aggressively pay that off and pay it off over 2 or 3 years is my hope. We have another highway ban that is maturing on July 16th. I have spoken with the same bank, and they are willing to renew it at 0.75%, just like the other one, as opposed to Sterling, where we currently have it, which is our bank, our financial institution. They were 3.5%. in the words of them, go with Greene County, we can't come near their amount of their interest rate. So they recommended that we look at the Bank of Greene County. They are the least expensive around. So Oric and the Bank of Greene County are working on the paperwork for that. So on July 15th, we're going to roll over 100,000 of we're going to pay off, we budgeted to pay off 70,000. I'm going to pay off the 71,165 just to round it to an even 100,000, which will be rolled over into a new band at 0.75% interest. So we will pay on the 16th this entire band, but we will be getting on the 15th the 100,000, and then the interest was already budgeted for. So we will have to find in our budget the $1,165, but I'm certain we can find that. And then we have another one, the other one that's outstanding for highway work comes due in September. And I'm anticipating doing the same thing with that, going to Bank of Greene County. So the American Rescue Plan, we submitted our application as you guys authorized me at the meeting. I think it was on the 16th. We have heard back that our application has been accepted. We have filled out all the paperwork for direct deposit, and I'm anticipating that someday very soon, approximately $395,000 will appear in our account. We're still awaiting the rules about how it can be used. We've talked about some ideas. The state and the federal government should be issuing those very, very soon. And as soon as we get them, we should talk about it. We'll get half this year, we'll get half next year, and we have until, I believe it was through 2024 to utilize all the money. That's what I remember. So, but it is somewhat restricted what it can be used for. And in other cases, it's pretty lenient. We can use it to reimburse any additional expenses we had due to COVID, which are not sizable, but we do have some. We can reimburse ourselves for revenue that was anticipated that was reduced due to COVID, but there is a formula you have to use to calculate that. We can use it for broadband infrastructure, broadband water and sewer infrastructure. And I do want to reach out to Spectrum and get some pricing to close up some of these gaps that we have and see if that's going to be an effective use of it. We also have in our capital project budget, 105,000 that was set aside by previous town boards for broadband. That combined with what we might want to allot from this could go a long way in closing up some of these gaps. So, but I'm also waiting to see what the county's going to do, because they're talking about broadband projects as well. And I certainly don't want to overlap if they're going to pay for something. So it's all sort of to be continued. We'll have more information in the next couple of months, but the process of getting the money is in place. New York Rising, first, for this building, we are finally getting to close out. It's been a 6-year process. Had a phone meeting this morning about that. There is money set aside that will allow for a water filtration system that will be put into here. So the water that comes out of the drinking fountains and out of the faucet is filtered and drinkable. The town will be reimbursed the $9,000 for that HVAC balancing that the state originally denied. A little phone call to Congressman Delgado and a phone call from him to them got the state to change their mind. So we will be reimbursed that $9,300 that we had paid. And that was the recommendation of our grant manager of how to handle that. And it appears to have worked. So we will be, that money will be reimbursed to us. Also there was during the construction, before we reoccupied, there was a miscellaneous professional cleaning bill that was incurred by us. We will be reimbursed for that as well. So, and all that closeout will be happening sometime over the, essentially over the next 30 to 60 days. Algerville Firehouse, we had a construction meeting there yesterday with all the prime contractors. They are starting interior demolition. They are ramping up next Tuesday with more work. And took us a little while to get it all in, and when the plumbing numbers came in, we were over budget. A few changes have been made to the project on the kitchen area with discussion with the fire district. And so we're not going to have quite as nice a kitchen there as we had all wanted, but we are now under budget and moving forward, and that project should be finished sometime by next spring with any hope.
Do you have maps for me on
I will run over and get them as soon as we're done. They're sitting on my desk.
that? All right.
I
I'll run
forgot
over
'em.
with you.
Yeah, and I'll hand them to you.
Perfect.
Summer recreation program, our summer staff rec aides are in place. They, along with our permanent recreation staff, took their CPR training on Monday and are all recertified. We begin the program on Monday, the 5th. It is a holiday, but everybody else, all the other towns were beginning on that day, and Ashley asked our workers and polled the parents, and we are beginning on the 5th. So we will run a 3-week session, take a week off, run a 3-week session. We are still reduced in numbers because the bus company still has to have us do social distancing on the bus. But we are going to run double buses as we approved. And as far as I know, all the slots were filled for the first one, and I believe the second session had like 2 slots available still, and that was as of last week. So it's very likely they may have filled up this week.
Mike, since we didn't allow for the double busing, obviously didn't know about COVID. How much is that gonna?
It's going to be about $7,000, but we're saving some money on staffing. So ultimately, and Ashley is doing a lot more trips to outdoor parks and things. And anytime we go to a state facility, our transportation costs are eligible to be reimbursed by the state. So I'm guessing at the end of the day, it's either going to be a wash or $2,000 to $3,000 more in cost. And I think between the savings that we're doing and a little reduced staff, because we're not having so many participants, I think we'll be fine at the end of the day with the overall budget. So, but the cost for transportation for one bus last year was about $7,000. They're not changing the price this year. It's the same price. So if you think about doubling that, and I think we can make up the majority of it. That includes, that's the driver and the bus from time they leave to time they get back. It's based on a mileage thing, but the trips are all very similar, or even some are a little closer. So Ashley and I feel that we probably will be close to a wash in that, which is why I wasn't too worried about it. I think at the end of the day, we'll be okay. Or if anything, we'll have to supplement a couple $1,000s. Playground equipment, it's arrived. It couldn't have come at a worse time for Jeff. Right in the middle of paving, tractor trailer showed up, but we got it unloaded. It's sitting behind the town hall. It is all, there's a lot of pieces and parts. We have instructions. I've been in contact with the sales rep who is going to have his construction foreman come up and help us. We did bid this with our own, putting it together ourselves because it was a substantial savings to having them put it together. But it has arrived, and I'm going to be actually asking you, because the voucher is due mid-July as opposed to the end of the month because of the ship date, and they are 30-day pay. I'm going to ask you to authorize the voucher tonight, so for payment of it, so we're not delayed on that.
Did we have someone else that would have come to help us set up?
The gentleman that I'm going to reach out to him. The gentleman that lives in our town who works for another playground company who arranged for that used playground equipment from the municipality in Connecticut. He actually called me last week. It is now ready for us to pick up. I've got to get back with Jeff. It's sort of sitting there waiting for us to come get it. We've got to figure out a time we can get a driver and a trailer over there. It's all packaged up. And the gentleman who took it apart actually lives in Saugerties. And he's willing to help us figure out how to put it all together too. So we've got several people who do this for a living who seem to want to help us. So I'm hoping I can talk both of those guys into helping us with this other.
I have a question for Jeff, if that's okay.
Sure.
As you go interstate, do you need permits?
No, I'll be okay. We're a municipality, so we don't need permits. For what we're gonna pick up actually will be okay. I wouldn't need the permits anyways.
You wouldn't.
No.
Okay.
Good question. The Be Kind recognition event, I just wanted to call attention to it. This was put together by the Ulster County Youth Board. It took place on one of the hottest days ever on a rooftop in Kingston on Monday, June 7th. One of our, George Burkett, one of our youth volunteers with our summer program, who actually is graduated this year, was recognized. He was nominated by Ashley as the town of Rochester's recipient of this. It was a pretty moving, amazing event. A lot of Rondout students were actually involved. There was a Rondout school, which is an off group, which I don't want to even try to say what the name of the group, because I don't totally remember exactly who the group was, but they weren't just made up of Rondout students. They had some New Paltz students. They had some Kingston students involved, but essentially it was a diversity group, and many of them spoke and told their stories of being kind and how they've learned how to fit in. And it was a really moving event. And every person involved received a gift of earbuds. And there must have been 200 recipients, and every one of them from the Ulster County Youth Board. So I want to thank Ashley for nominating George, for inviting me to be there, and really a great program. And then finally, a few weeks ago, our resident up on Cherrytown and Upper Cherrytown, where the natural wells are, she asked that she not be named, so I won't name her, but the people who live there on the corner have put their property into a permanent recognition. It's in their deed that well will be available to the public in perpetuity. And there was a nice little event. Gary Miller organized a small event of recognition, and there is a very nice plaque that is mounted there by the water. So please take a drive by. It's very nice. She had called me about a year ago with this idea. I put her in touch with some attorneys who could help her with it, and she got it all done. And it's a very nice gesture. But she did want to remain anonymous, so I'm going to honor that request. So with that, liaison reports. Aaron, I guess we'll just go around the table.
Sure. Let's see. The zoning board of appeals has had one application the past couple months that they're working on. And also, I think we don't have it on the agenda, but we do have 2 open positions at the transfer station. And we have been collecting applicants for that. And I was hoping we could just have a discussion tonight about.
I actually was going to add an agenda
Right.
item in the discussion
about
section.
How we want to do the
Yeah.
hiring process for
Yep.
those 2 positions. But other than that, that's all I've got.
Okay.
With the court, we have a new court clerk in training. I saw Judge LaFlamme the other afternoon. She was there. I have not sat down with them to do their books yet. I will be. They're trying to play catch up. They are playing catch up very, it's very difficult for them. They're doing the violations issued. They spent a special day, a Monday actually, doing the building department violations. And then, of course, court Wednesdays, not this Wednesday, because I believe this was the 5th Wednesday. Was it? Is that possible? I don't think they had court Wednesday.
Maybe not. Oh, this past Wednesday.
This past-
Yes,
yesterday.
yes,
Yes,
yesterday was the
yesterday.
5th. Yesterday was the 5th Wednesday of the month, yes, so, yes, if there's 5, they skip the 5th and they,
Yes.
the first 4, yep.
Sorry, my daughter's used to Zoom meetings. She left without her keys this morning. She just asked me to let her in the house.
Ah.
I'm get Accord and get my keys.
So that's what I have to report. And if you notice as you drive by, Mr. Warden has done an excellent job painting with
Yes,
the brown and gray. It looks lovely. It goes with the white building in the back. Everything's coming together and we have plants out there. It's very lovely.
It does
The
look very
annex,
nice.
the annex that was said didn't fit now looks beautified.
Yep.
And what is that? It has good curb appeal.
and the lighting at night in
Yes,
the,
the lighting
looks
at
so,
night
it's
is
downward,
nice.
it's not obtrusive, and
Yeah.
it's very, and I'm gonna look into similar lighting for under the front entrance, so we don't have to have those big floodlights.
It's can lighting. It goes up.
Yeah,
That's all
yep.
I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Mr. Warner, who did the other ones. The other ones were paid for by the grant. The grant is
Yes.
done, but they weren't that expensive. So I'm gonna speak with him and get a price to do that under the front door overhang as well. Chris,
The Environmental Commission continues to do cleanups and making progress on the climate smart community with Madeline. A couple of weeks ago, the EPC did a tire brigade cleanup. Last Thursday's speaker was Judith Markova, speaking about the health of buildings and building science. And how to have a healthy building. July 17th. Talking about invasive species. And that's with John Thompson. To identify troublesome insects and pathogens that are lurking in our forests.
okay.
How many tires we able to find? Tires, you said?
Oh,
Tires?
I didn't get a report on how many, but I saw a picture of Larry at this convenience store.
Yeah, Jeff, you might have a little more information because I want to thank Jeff and the highway crew because they took it out by the Berm Road entrance instead of coming all the way down into Accord because they didn't get quite as many people as they had hoped. But there was a baby stroller and a barbecue grill and
Muffler,
yeah,
can't reuse the muffler on anything, so I had to throw that away, but the tire, honestly, the tires, they sit there, I could count them, I honestly don't know how many there were,
yeah.
but we got a little bit more to pick up, which we'll probably do tomorrow, but there was quite a bit of stuff there that they fished out of that stream. It's a perfect time because it was low.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect time for them to do that.
The tires are a remnant still from the hurricane, when
Yeah.
the tire store in Kerhonkson, when they all floated away and got into the Rondout.
It's a
So
lot of them.
the-
A lot.
every year we get a few more.
Yeah.
And I thank the ECC for being diligent about it. Every year they try to go out in early June when the water level is lowest and get as many as they can. So. And each year they tell me there's a few more that get unearthed. Because a lot of them just got buried in the muck in the bottom and so. Okay, assessors report is the Board of Assessment Review completed their review for the grievance application submitted and all the changes have been made. I submitted to you a copy of that. The final assessment roll has been completed, is on file with the assessor's office, and it's also available on the town website. Today actually is the assessment day, July 1st. The assessor, as the board knows, is retiring the end of August. He has a considerable amount of vacation time built up, and his plan is to take Fridays off as vacation until
It
the
doesn't
end
work.
of, yeah, you can speak to that. And then the other part is, he is offering to stay on past August 27th on a limited schedule of 15 hours per week to assist the new assessor if need be. And we will be speaking at some point about how we want to fill the assessor's role, if we want to continue with the part-time shared assessor with the other towns, if we want to go to our own assessor, whether is full-time or part-time. And we need to have that conversation at some point. So I will say, Rosendale has reached out and asked us what our plans are, and I said, still to be determined, so. Since Councilman Paddock is not here, I pretty much already gave in the recreation report department, except I want to add that we've moved line dancing and the chair yoga and the senior exercise classes to indoors now when that heat hit. So they have moved in here. They are social distancing, as is evidenced by all the X's all over the floor here. And so Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Is that what it is? Yeah, 11 a.m. Anybody wants to line dance, exercise, or do chair yoga? The constabulary report, there were 21 calls for service during the month of June. There were 11 neighbor-to-neighbor quality of life complaints. There were 7 traffic complaints, 2 environmental complaints. 23 court proceedings remain open, although I think a few of them may have been closed at the last Monday. I don't know if this includes that. Oh, it says right there, 4 court proceedings closed. There were 11 building department violations served. In general, the traffic has increased in the area. Several roads have had a substantial increase. We continue to be responsive to these complaints, and we are fielding issues of trespass on properties again, and continued complaints of garbage being dumped on either properties or vacant land. Neighbor-to-neighbor complaints have increased again during the latter part of the month. They were all diffused successfully, and during the COVID, we continue to have limited direct contact. To add, I have authorized Rich to respond to any calls he gets directly from the public at this time. And anything that I am notified of, I notify him as well. We are regularly watching where the Depot area, Towpath Road area, Cherrytown Road area, especially on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, and trying our best to stay on top of it. Depot has had, for the most part, has been okay. Yesterday with the heat, there were 3 cars who just decided to park right on the road. We got them moved. But everybody else was off the road as they're supposed to be and parked correctly. And most people appear to be trying. So we just try to stay on top of it. And planning board still has a full agenda. We have our new planning and zoning board secretary who is learning really quickly. She's a fast learner. We got her some online videos to watch to get the basics of planning and zoning, the same ones that our new members take. And she appears to be like a sponge. She's really grasping it quickly. So that's all I have. So do you want to do public comment now, or should we?
So we gave everything that was there, so why don't we do it?
Okay. If anyone would like to speak tonight. Okay,
Don't knock each other over.
Any items any town board members want to bring up that aren't on the agenda? And I am going to be adding a couple of items to the agenda that have materialized since Tuesday. So some of them may be things that you have already, but,
I have two songs.
okay.
I'm gonna reiterate about the public comment and ask that if we move, I don't know if we need a resolution to do that, but if you move to where we put it this evening.
I'm happy to do that. I don't believe we need a resolution. We'll just schedule it there in the agenda for future.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do that.
And.
Let me make a note so I remember.
Thank you. I was hoping there would be more people here, especially one of the people that I would like to speak about. This is only our second open meeting to the public, and it's a great time even to reflect back as far as May. There were two women from the town of Rochester who received awards and recognition from the Ulster County Emergency Medical Service Council. They, as a result of her work with the Ellenville Rescue Squad, Emma Post received the Youth Provider of the Year award. I was, hoping that maybe one of them, I put a call out to her dad, but she also works this evening. Now, the next person that received an award who works with the Marbletown First Aid Unit as chief and as an EMT is Karen Pardini. She received the Harriet C. Weber Leadership Award. And I thought it would be real nice if the town of Rochester sent some kind of letter to both of them, thanking them for their service and that they won these awards, and they live in Rochester.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Absolutely, we can do that. Okay,
I have one thing.
yes.
So I was thinking about streaming the meetings. And I had like a couple thoughts. One, I think I can even do this if we make a laminated sign that we can put on the door informing the public as they come in that the meeting is streaming. So
I
that
like that idea.
people know, and I'm happy to just do that and have that, in the kit.
Mhm.
And then the second was, I had a suggestion that we don't need to stream the audit portion of the meetings necessarily, because it's just this sort of really long, we're still open to the public and I love having the meetings and having it be super transparent, but it's just a really long period of time where we're not really doing anything.
Understood. Yeah, the only initial thought I have is because the workshop starts immediately after the audit, we don't really know what time that is, but
Right.
I'm okay with that if the board is okay with that. I actually was gonna ask and add a resolution tonight. We don't really need to, but just to formalize it, that we do a resolution that we continue streaming the planning board, ZBA and town board meetings. And I was gonna ask the board members' opinions on the HPC and ECC meetings. And we're borrowing a camera for the short term to test it out. If it works, we're gonna purchase our own. They're not particularly expensive. And we learned a few lessons with the workshop meeting, that make sure you're plugged into an outlet that the breaker isn't tripped and have your computer turn off in the middle of the meeting. But once we solve that problem, it seems to be working pretty well. So we'll keep giving it a try. This microphone seems to pick up pretty well. We could buy a more expensive camera that does have a better microphone range, but then you may get a lot more background noise and more echo. What I'm going to suggest is we continue trying this for another few meetings, make sure it's all working right, and then before we purchase. But if the board wants to entertain a resolution, when we get to resolutions, we could do one to formalize that process. I think we found that the public really likes it, and it's not really all that hard to do.
Right.
So,
If I could give some feedback, I think part of that resolution might be if there's any expectations we have for the other boards for if they put the agenda up or something like that, that maybe I don't know, but to sort of, or if we don't, if they just need to be streamed, then that's fine.
yeah,
And then my other would be if there is like, we could have for the streaming, if you're concerned about the public tuning in, we could like have like a screen if it starts later than we think it's gonna start or something that says meeting will start as soon. I don't know,
Oh,
something like
that's
that.
not a bad idea.
Like starting at 6:30 or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
not a bad idea.
And then people know that it's
Yeah.
gonna start, but
Because I agree, sitting watching us pass papers around is not a particularly exciting meeting.
and it's still public, like people can come in
Right.
and listen to us discuss and
Right.
things, but I was just thinking it.
Yeah, it's like,
Usually takes an hour to do the building.
yeah,
It's 7.
we could, you know, and we could just say the workshop meeting is going to start at 7, and if we're done early, we just take a break and then start at 7. And if it starts later than, it'll be, you know, no earlier than 7. And if it's 7:15, it's 7:15, and we'll start, that's an option too. It's just to, you know, not take advantage of your time. If we're done with the bills at 6:40,
Right.
then we got to sit around for 20 minutes and
right.
wait till we start the meeting,
Yeah.
so.
My question is this, Mary, Lou, do we lose anything in transparency if we were to do the bills like we were during COVID, when each person went in to sign? Do we lose transparency that way?
You don't have to sign them in public.
Right. That was the
But-
board's choice. We kind of have done it both ways. If the board wants to,
I just
Move
thought I'd
away
cross
from-
that out. That
Yeah.
was all.
if the board wants to audit individually, as long, and
As long as when you approve. you're in-
we just, we will approve it at the beginning of the workshop
Yes.
meeting. The first
Yes.
resolution will be, we approve the payment of the bills.
Yes.
It's an idea to kick around. That was, and I'll be very honest, that Brian liked the passing around the bills, and we all have said that sometimes one of us catches something that somebody else doesn't. That's the one advantage. The other advantage is it's one time and we're all in the same place. You don't have to schedule you coming in, and, you know.
Okay, that's up to you guys. I just thought I would
yeah.
bring that out.
I mean, I'll always be here early with the bills for anybody who wants to pre-review them, but it's not an official meeting. We can't really talk about anything until the meeting actually opens, if we're gonna meet in public,
Right.
so.
What did you say, Chris?
I like coming together better, but sometimes we would come the day before.
That was
Yeah.
just during, I come at 5. usually I'm
Oh,
here at
that's
5.
right.
I mean, now we're getting in more of a rhythm, and with COVID, we can try to have them ready by like the end of Wednesday or noon on Thursday or something like that. We can kind of try to get to a more regular time so they can be available ahead of time if anybody wants to look through them or pre-sign them. So, but like Mary Lou said, there's no rule that we have to audit them in person. It's just if we're talking about them as a group, we have to be in public meeting.
Just so long as we know we could do it.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe if someone were
absolutely.
Going on vacation.
Yeah.
or you knew you were
Oh, yeah.
going to be gone.
And if you're gonna be away, you can come pre-audit the bills as long as they're ready. And
Right,
Tim
that's-
is really mastering the art of the bills. He's now done it twice and he's getting it down. And Tina's bills are pretty well put together and very artistic.
Very hard on it.
She makes a special folder with a very labeled cover that you can't miss. Thank you. Appreciate that, Aaron. Okay, moving into resolutions. Let me just make sure I scroll here on the screen. The first is a resolution on the minutes. The town board accepts the minutes of the June 3rd public hearing and regular meeting, the June 14th special meeting, and the June 16th special meeting. And we're going to table the June 24th because they're not quite ready yet. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I just want to thank Christina. She's filled in a lot while Kate's been gone, and it's something that she's worked really hard on doing, and she's done a really good job. And thank you, Kate, for helping her get with your template. It was a great learning experience for her. I can say it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain.
That's gonna save us some time right there.
Yeah,
Right there,
yeah. the other day, I was at a meeting and Dennis Doyle, on these large meetings, he always just says, any opposed, they don't do it, and all in favor. And he started doing it and he was like, oh, wait, I have to say all in favor. Next, acceptance of donations. The town board accepts a donation of $300 from Rochester Senior Group for the summer recreation program.
That motion?
I have a second.
I'll second.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. I'm going to add in a resolution here that I neglected to put on the agenda. It's another donation. This is acceptance of a donation from Ash Sweeney, who donated 4 cases of bottled beer for the Ash Tree Arts Festival that took place on June 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Next, the town board authorizes Christina Ferrara to work an additional 5 hours per week to assist the assessor until August 8th, 2021. In addition to normal work hours as first deputy clerk, and will be compensated at the regular rate of pay. Do I have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Next, the town board authorizes the town supervisor, and I have the voucher here. I'll pass it around if each of you would audit and initial it. Authorizes the town supervisor to make payment of $52,055.29 to play and park structures of New Jersey and New York as budgeted in the 2021 general fund budget upon audit by the town board. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Discussion?
I'm gonna hold. a minute. You mind?
Nope.
I want to see the.
Yep, understood. And if you want, we can, we'll go back to the vote on it once you guys look at that bill. Let's just table it for the moment. And do you mind if I move on to, I have a couple additional resolutions
Do we
to
have
add.
to do anything with the motion or just?
We're just gonna, we'll come back to the vote on it. We'll just table it for the
Table it
moment and I'll remake the motion once you guys have looked at it. This is a motion that Jeff came to me the other day with, we had talked about the price of paving the courthouse. Jeff came back with 13,000, was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
So we did budget within the buildings and grounds line for $45,000 of work in 2021. We have used some of it, but not very much of it. So I'd like to make, if we're gonna do it, Jeff would need to do it sometime in August, or actually you would probably do it toward the end of July or early August.
Yeah, probably the end of this month, the beginning of next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just put it out for a discussion item. So I'm gonna make the motion to authorize Jeff Fry to do site work and paving on the courthouse parking lot. Should we say not to exceed 14,000 to give you a little leeway with the price of?
Yeah, because the price changes every month.
Okay.
It's $57 a ton right now. I don't remember the tonnage, but the 13,000 I quoted you would be pretty close.
Yeah, you originally said like 12,900 and then so,
It changes every
Yeah.
month, so I'll need a little.
okay,
little
so I
leeway.
make the motion then to not to exceed 14,000.
Second.
Okay, discussion on that.
Question.
Yep.
What about marking? Are we gonna mark that parking lot for
Well-
spaces to make it better?
We can certainly do that. That wouldn't be done. We would have to contract that out because
Correct.
Stripe.
the striping. That would have to be jobbed out independently and we would probably have to go out and get quotes on that. So this would be just to do the paving similar to what we did here. Because with the highway department doing it, we're only paying for material. Because it'll be done as a shared service. So
Jeff, how long after you pave can they mark before it gets too messy for them?
This should wait a month. So the paint doesn't soak into the blacktop quite so much.
we wouldn't stripe it until probably till September then.
Yep.
And in the meantime, we can get quotes on that. But I just, being that Jeff probably would want to do it at the end of this month or early next month, I figured I'd ask the board what they thought about it. It is one of the things that was high on the list on the building survey, the building condition survey, because the way the water is running toward that building right now, and they would be able to correct that slope with the paving. And you would go all the way around behind the annex, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And that one tree stump that's there would be removed
That's gonna be gone.
and we would, it would be the full area around the courthouse would be paved.
How high do you have to raise that up, Jeff, to get it? You go out of there.
Yeah, we usually do 2 inches, but we'll do it in steps, or what they call lifts. So some areas that are lower than some will get a higher lift, or more of a lift than other areas, so that the water doesn't towards the building, it'll
That's
run
what I-
away from.
Yeah, because there is some flooding.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is some flooding.
Yeah, it'll slope away toward the backside and toward toward the field. Any other question or discussions, or should we call the vote?
Do we have this in budget?
We have the 45,000 in budget that we put in as a placeholder with no specific projects in mind, just as a placeholder. So the answer is yes, we do. It's more of, is this one of our priorities, or do we have other things? The painting is happening. Harry is chipping away at painting, as you can see, the outside of the building. And by doing all that in-house, and we're just paying for the paint. And Harry's labor is Harry's daily labor anyway. So we're knocking off quite a few of our projects this year already. It's been nice. This is a bigger one, but I think it's an important one to preserve that building. So with that being said, I guess I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, Jeff, schedule it. Let me know.
Will do, absolutely.
And whatever work you need to do to do that stump stuff too, if you need to bill that back to the general fund. So, okay.
No, we won't have to do that.
Okay.
Mike, I have a question that didn't come up during discussion.
Yes.
Jeff, how are you going to flag for this? Samsonville's awfully busy this time.
Yeah, we'll
Flag people, or you got flag?
I'll
people?
have enough, yeah, we'll be able to have some flag people to, just to, cut down on the traffic, or maybe redirect to Clay Hill Road so they don't have to come down that
Something, yeah,
way.
because.
Yeah,
it's-
yeah, I got that all.
You'll
planned out.
coordinate with the county on that.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let the county know,
Yeah.
just give them a shout, say, hey, we're gonna be flagging on your road, we're gonna direct traffic here and there. and
Right.
They don't usually have any issue with that at all.
You probably wouldn't need to close it totally though, would you?
No,
Or yeah,
no,
yeah,
I'm just gonna kind of get them to go a different route,
got it.
encourage them to go a different route.
come on.
Understood.
Yes.
Okay. And the last resolution, this is a carryover from Code Enforcement Office's request about new personnel. We did talk about this previously. Spoke with the individual, spoke with Mr. Davis. So I'm going to make a motion for discussion that the town board authorizes the hiring of Cindy Graham as a clerk part-time up to not to exceed 20 hours per week at a rate of $17.50 per hour, effective on July 6th, 2021.
What was the figure?
$17.50. So do I have a second for discussion? So
I'll
it's,
second it.
okay, so it's to hire, at Mr. Davis's recommendation, to hire Cindy Graham as a part-time clerk at a rate of $17.50 per hour, not to exceed 20 hours per week, effective July 6th, 2021. And I'm only doing it on the 6th because otherwise her first day would be a holiday. So for discussion, you second it. Okay, for discussion. Many weeks it will be 12 or 14 hours a week. What Ms. Graham will do as a contractor, she is very familiar with the building permit process. She will process building permits. She will answer questions of the applicants toward building permits. Her anticipation is to work 2 to 3 days a week. Most weeks, she probably would only work about 12 or 13 hours. She originally said, make it 14 or 15 hours a week. Jerry said, well, if the county will let you go to 20 as a part-time, let's just put it in as 20. Because if there's a rainy week or something and she can work more hours, then she can work more hours. But most weeks she would work 12 to 14 hours. She will help our staff with processing zoning permits, processing building permits, and just make that office be a little more proactive with the crunch that we're getting of permits. The other nice thing about this is she is not looking at this as long-term. So if we get through this year and we find next year things have slowed down enough and our current staff is a little more up to speed on things, then it may be a mutual, we don't need to do this anymore. So. And this was at Mr. Davis's request, which he put into us back in like March or April to get an additional staff member in there.
How did we decide on the pay figure?
I did it based on our normal starting clerks staff pay with just based on, it is the same as the planning board secretary is making.
And do we have, since you mentioned that she's a contractor, do we have a protocol in place for like, I don't know, like if there's a conflict?
So there is no conflict.
As a public official, which she would be as a town employee, if there is a conflict, she is required by the law to recuse herself.
Okay.
We have had people in that position previously who were married to contractors who, and they never processed their own permits. And obviously she would be the same. Just the not only as a contractor, but the years of experience at Williams Lumber managing their contract division, she understands it.
Yeah.
Jerry, full disclosure, Jerry sought her out. When I said to him, do you have somebody in mind? He said, yeah, I do. He sought her out, talked to her. She's expressed interest. We did not advertise for this.
Right.
He brought her, we talked to her. I brought it to you guys to think about, and was told, go ahead and look into it. So we spoke, Jerry, and she spoke this afternoon. She came and talked to me, and that's why I'm bringing it to you guys. So. And she's itching to get going. She actually already did a couple hours today for free, as she put it, of teaching Alyssa and Courtney a little bit more about how to do the calculations and things on the building permits. So. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, I will let both of them know. Jerry. Next, moving on to the possible resolutions. We have a request from the court clerks to attend.
We have the open vote.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Everybody have a chance to see this? Okay. Do we need to remake the resolution?
Well, you didn't get a second, so
Okay.
On
So,
that one?
No, it was Mike and Chris.
it was Michael.
Okay.
Oh, you made the motion. I thought you just brought it up and
yeah,
that Chris made the
okay.
motion.
So I
Okay.
made Chris second. We don't need to remake it. We can
No,
just now vote
no,
on
we
it.
can
Okay.
vote on it.
So this is the motion authorizing the supervisor to make payment of $52,055.29 to Play and Park Structures of New Jersey and New York as budgeted in the 2021 general fund upon audit by the town board. So we have the motion in a second. Are there any questions, discussion?
Please make sure that that front copy shows the numbers that are covered.
Yes. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
I will correct that.
the total is up at the top, but the.
Understood.
I just-
Yeah, this was the original purchase order that we submitted to them, and my apologies, I did not notice that at the bottom it was cut off. We will correct that. And the bill is included with it, and we will start opening all the boxes and figuring out how it goes together. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Now moving on. This was a request from the court clerks to attend this conference. They have done this before. Excuse me. I don't believe we have enough money budgeted for trainings to cover this, which is why I'm bringing it to the board. So
The.
B, do you want to, yeah, why don't I let you handle this piece since you can explain it better than I can?
Well, I don't know if I can explain it better, but I can tell you that last year, the court did not turn in a budget figure. And that's why it's not budgeted. They did not make their budget, put together a budget. For whatever reason, I do not know. But that's why there is no money in the.
Well, there is,
Well, set aside.
yeah, there is a
Well,
line item set aside for
There
training.
is, but I'm not sure it's enough to cover this.
It probably is not.
Do we have the total?
1350 is set aside for in the budget, which is what I put in as a placeholder, $1,350.
It may cover, I thought it was.
No, it won't because
450,
it's,
I don't know.
well, 680 a person for the double occupancy, which would be 1360 plus 65 per person is 130. So,
And do you have travel expenses as well?
yeah,
They're gonna have mileage.
mileage.
I don't know if they're gonna travel together, there's gonna be. one.
I think we're gonna ask them to travel together.
And they are both requesting to go be.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
They would be good for the
1360
Yeah.
and it's 1490 plus there's a
Yes.
2.99% fee applied to the 65, the 130 registration fee. So it's about $1,600 plus the mileage and tolls.
We
It
were
is
over at
in,
1490.
is in Albany this year. Last time it was in Syracuse,
Yes.
so it's much closer. I did bring up the idea of commuting and they did not appear to be too interested in that. We have done that before with our trainings,
Yeah.
but it does mean they start early. It does mean leaving here.
And you don't get.
You don't get
the input from all the other people who are participating in the conference. You get more time with the other clerks.
Mhm.
They get, believe it or not, it gets them more training.
So it would probably, my guess is it would probably be in the neighborhood of $1,600 as opposed to $1,350, which is,
We're at 1490 and we're
Yeah.
gonna pay mileage.
yeah,
So we have to move some $300.
yeah.
And they could probably use Jerry's old car, and then you're.
If
Then you're
they,
not
if
paying
they,
mileage
there's an
and-
idea, if they can take the, Jeff,
I was just gonna, thank you, Kate. I was
Yeah.
gonna raise my hand and say they
And
are
it's
more
easy
than welcome
pass.
to take the Explorer.
and that is now back in good shape.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
And our
there we go.
insurance covers other
Yes.
drivers.
Anybody who's a town employee is covered under our policies.
Yep.
So then we won't have to pay mileage and won't have to pay tolls and they just will take that. And it'll be a town vehicle they take and then we'll just gas up and they probably should be able to get to Albany and back in a tank of gas. And if they have to fill up, we'll just give them the credit card. And so all we're gonna pay extra is a little bit of gas. Good suggestion. Thank you,
Yeah.
both of you.
Yeah, Kate.
I was thinking of the old car, which we don't have anymore, but that's a great
No,
idea.
that's perfect running condition.
Okay,
It's- yeah.
great. Now that we put a new back window in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it won't
Yeah.
leak now.
well, with that being said, we're probably looking at about 14 to 1,500. So now we're only having to make up $150 to $200. So.
I don't mean to be smart, but maybe the 1,600 and it'll stop because, well, we'll put gas in here. Just give them a little,
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, we don't have to put a number on it. We just have to approve it. I mean, we will eventually have to move some money into that budget line. I can probably find it from another line in the justice court, that small amount of money.
I don't know if we put in for their law books this year. Usually they get them. every
Yeah,
year.
yeah, we'll have to
Law
look,
books
but
are usually expensive.
yeah. I will be coming, because our meeting is on the 1st, and I just got the June reports and you guys got them today. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but we are going to have to do a few little tweaks of a budget come next month. But we're in pretty good shape, so. Okay, did we actually, we did not actually do a motion. We just started in discussion. Somebody want to make a
I'll
motion?
make the motion that we allot $1,600 for the 2 court clerks to take training in Albany and utilize the town car, with the understanding that if they don't utilize the town car, gas and mileage is on them.
Fair enough. I'll give them the option.
Second.
And then for discussion purposes, do we want to put a number in the resolution or? leave it open?
She
Just
just,
say
she
that
said 1,600.
1,600.
Yeah, okay.
And
Oh, yeah, I was
if
just
they-
asking
okay.
if they go over though, that's probably okay.
If they go over, then we'll,
If they use their own car.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It shouldn't go over if they use
Okay.
our vehicle, just based on these prices. I mean, that was quick math, but I think
Well, it's $3 a gallon.
1360. It's about 1,500 plus the 2.99% of
Yeah,
the
that's-
130.
that's-
Okay,
Yeah, it's putting us over. We're at 1490 without the
Yeah,
percentage.
yeah.
And then, yes,
okay.
That
I'm
percentage
fine.
is gonna be about $38. So
Okay.
we're about 1,525. So 1,600 should be adequate.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, I'll let
When are they
Leanne.
going? When will they be going?
September 12th through the
Okay.
15th.
I just wanted to make sure that I have it ready to go for.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. I'll let Leanne know because they apparently need to get registered quickly because it's filling up, so. This next resolution is not going to be on the agenda because I'm waiting for the Office of the Economic Development to get us the resolution. They were supposed to send it this afternoon and they didn't, so. What it is involving is there is a business in the town of Rochester that is applying for this Office of Homes and Community Renewal. And the legislature is sponsoring the resolution and they were asking us to do a resolution of support. But without the actual resolution, I don't feel comfortable with us voting on it. So they gave me a draft, but the draft they sent me was the one that the legislature was doing. When I got it, I said, we're sponsoring the grant. And she said, no, you're just authorizing, I mean, you're just supporting it. And I said, the resolution says we're applying. And she went, oh, I sent you the wrong resolution, but she never got me the right one.
Can you say what the business,
Um,
or do you want to wait until?
I don't mind saying it because I guess they're going to apply. It's the granary project here
Oh,
in the town. They are applying for an economic development grant. It's not a tax abatement or anything like that. It's not a payment in lieu of taxes. This is a grant to help finance the development of the project. You know that they're in process of working on. They've hired an engineer now, they've hired an attorney, and they're in the process of working on getting us an application. They just want to get it all together before they present it to us.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, they spoke to the Economic Development Office, who pointed them in the direction of a couple different grants. And this is one that the legislature is apparently going to put on their July agenda. I may have to come back to you for a special meeting to do the resolution because the grant application is due by the end, somewhere the end of July. It's before probably before our workshop meeting, but we'll find out. Because apparently the support of it is an important piece of the resolution. I mean, the application, excuse me. But
They won't hold it up if we wait a week or so.
no, it won't. It just has to be submitted with their application, but it probably will be before our next meeting. So I may, if they do decide to pursue this and the legislature adopts it, then they may come back to us for this. I called and got no reply back today. I gave it as best to try as I could, so. Moving forward, does the board want to talk more? But I put our changes into the short-term rental that we talked about. And I emailed it to everybody. B and Aaron, you probably have a copy available to you. Chris, I don't know, do you have You have a copy of it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me just share screen here. So I just want to talk through it and see where we think we are and then decide if we want to try to get a referral out. So working through it, all the changes are in red. Hopefully when I printed it as a PDF, but are the changes that showed up in the PDF in red for you guys?
You didn't send it in the backup.
No, I emailed it separately on Tuesday night, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, the backup, weird email. It kicked it back and told me it didn't go through, but everybody seemed to have gotten it, so.
Yeah, that was, I get messages every once in a while, and then I look and it's in my, so I send it's in my sent mail twice, yeah.
Find it?
Wednesday?
Yeah, I
Okay.
knew they were clustered,
Okay.
together, but I wasn't
Yeah.
seeing it.
And the changes are showing in
Yes.
red on the PDF, okay. I'm working off the Word version, so I am putting it out on the screen for the people watching, so
It's not showing in red.
Oh.
That's okay. Yep.
yeah, I think, I did send both
We sent
versions.
both,
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
for the
I
change.
just changed. some of the other ones.
yeah, as we make changes, you can bounce back and forth. You could probably make it so it shows it, it depends on the settings in your
There it is.
Word, yeah, okay. So the first change is just adding the letters STR, next to short-term transient rental, because it's a lot easier writing STR than short-term transient rental everywhere. We're adding in the words as home businesses in the purpose to clarify. And Mary Lou, feel free to chime in anywhere if we've done something we shouldn't have done.
That came in from the training.
That came in from the training and from comments that Aaron had made, and I think the planning board may have sort of said something along those lines, maybe not those specific words, but that pretty much came from that training that several of us took. Rest here remains the same until we get down to definitions, section F. I've added the definition of access, which is the definition of access already in our zoning code. It's doing it in this section. The accessory dwelling unit, the last time we talked, Aaron did a really great explanation of this. It's something we anticipate is going to be added into the code when it comes in from the zoning review committee. But it essentially is a concept that an accessory dwelling unit would be essentially a cottage or some type of dwelling unit, permanent dwelling unit on a piece of property that's under one ownership. The sort of mother-daughter apartment, but it's got to be it's a separate structure, and it has its own cooking and sanitation facilities.
Yeah, it would have its own entrance.
Right.
And I think in the building code, they're under a certain size.
Right. Okay, we may need to add that
But-
certain size in there then.
Or in our we haven't adopted it yet, though. It's,
Okay,
in our recommended, which the board has not seen the recommended code chapter yet, so it's not,
Right.
we might change it. We have a specific size and
okay.
type.
Well, we could adopt this for
I was gonna
now.
say,
and-
keep this like this, and when you have
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you can make this amendment along with the
And this is,
other code amendments.
this is something the county is recommending, the county planning department is recommending very strongly, and a number of towns have adopted accessory dwelling unit sections of zoning code for full-time residency,
Right.
to lessen,
And there's a bill before the legislature.
The
On
state
that,
legislature.
actually.
state,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a new concept of an old concept is the best way to put
Yeah,
it.
well, it's an old concept that lots of towns got rid of because they used to use really just for like the mother-in-law or the granny
Right.
apartment, and that's what used to be allowed, and then granny would pass on to a better place. They just run it out.
And it would
without
become a
us knowing.
rental and.
Right.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
now it's
Now they're
seen as
becoming-
a very
yeah.
good
Now it's
way to
like,
address
hey, we
housing
need
needs
housing
in
needs, yep.
communities that.
Yep.
Yep.
Then,
In this, we're leaving the cooking. though.
yes,
Yeah.
that it has to,
That's-
in order to be a dwelling
Yes.
unit, it has to have cooking and center of its own. And also, if it's part of, if you have a house and there's another wing and it's part of the structure, that's not an accessory dwelling unit. Even if it has its own cooking, in this case, it's still part of that same structure. So this is
A
a
separate structure.
separate structure.
So shares the building lot with the, I think it's typically can be a basement or but it's not the same as a two-family home.
Correct.
So.
But in this definition for short-term rental,
I don't know. I don't know that it
Yeah.
says that. It says a
It does-
secondary residential
yeah.
dwelling unit that shares the building lot
of
of a
a
larger primary home. But I don't know if you have an.
Should
attached
we add
apartment
in
to it,
as a separate structure?
Does
Well,
it
what-
matter?
For you, what? did
Well,
you wanna
I'm
do?
thinking is if it's in one unit, it's in this case, it doesn't matter in terms, because we're going to talk about owner occupied and non-owner occupied. So if the building is owner occupied, if there's a secondary part of that same building, it's still owner occupied in my mind. Because we talk about the owner occupied as being the parcel. So I'm not sure that it really, in my mind, if it's part of one building, it's all part of the dwelling
Owner
unit.
occupied is an STR unit that is the primary residence of the owner for at least 180 days in the calendar year. So it says the unit.
Yeah, but
And the
some,
owner is present in the dwelling or is present on the same parcel.
yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm not, I apologize. I opened the wrong file.
All right. Now it's all making sense.
It's making sense. I opened the wrong file. Let me get the right one up. This is the right one. Yes, this is the right one. Because some of these I made corrections on, and
This is the one, we're looking at the one you sent out Tuesday.
yeah, you're looking at the right one. I was looking at the wrong one. And it may not have changed anything, but. Yeah, it did change. So. In the backtracking now to the authorization. And this I copied from Marbletown's law, where basically, and you can tell me if it's the correct. Adopted in accordance with Articles 9 and 16 of town law, which grants the town of Rochester the authority to enact local laws for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the town in accordance with municipal home rule law, Article 2, Section 10, gives the town of Rochester the power to protect and enhance its physical environment. I copied that out of Marbletown's short-term rental
Yeah, I'd
law.
have to go back and look
Yeah.
at Articles
Yeah,
9 and 16.
Yeah.
Do that now, if you'd like me to,
sure.
because normally we just say
Yeah,
the
yeah.
municipal home rule.
Yeah, I thought it was, being that it's a little bit, people are questioning it a little
Right,
bit.
yeah, no, I
figured-
think
yeah,
that's why they
yeah,
did that, give it a little bit
Yeah.
more
yeah.
meat.
So the accessory dwelling unit, it's still the same definition. So maybe it doesn't matter. I was just thinking that if it's all part of one structure, it's not a separate dwelling unit, but.
Right, but
If
even
it's an
in,
apartment, it's a separate dwelling. unit,
in
you can
our-
stack.
in this law, we allow someone who has multiple dwelling units on a single property to just have one permit.
No, they would still need separate permits,
Oh, but they're one,
but it's counted as one
It's counted as
property
one
in the, you can only have two properties.
so I think it doesn't, My concern is that if we introduce the idea of accessory dwelling units,
It'll confuse.
it's gonna be completely opposite from what we're meaning it here.
Okay,
And the only other place we reference that term is in the definition for primary.
I did make sure to use accessory dwelling unit in the code since we were defining it. But we could rework the definition. It says a secondary residential dwelling unit that shares the
Because,
building lot of a primary home.
yeah, it can be an attached or detached.
Why don't we
residential.
say an attached or detached secondary residential dwelling unit? And that just,
But yeah, and currently in our code, the only way to have a unit like this is to have the density, the acreage that you would need for
Right.
another dwelling.
right,
So if you live in R2, you have to have 4 acres to have
even if it's part of the same structure?
in our current code, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how Jerry was treating that these days, but.
Yeah.
Okay,
So on your Article 9 and Article 16 is appropriate, Article 9 is not. That's if you're passing something by ordinance,
oh, okay,
and we're not.
okay.
Article 16 is the zoning and planning section of town law,
So we'll just say in accordance with Article 16 and Marbletown got it wrong.
unless they do theirs by ordinance, I don't know.
And then the municipal home rule law, Article 2, Section 10.
Yeah, that's,
That's,
yep, that's the
that's
thing that
standard.
lets us pass laws.
Okay. So the accessory dwelling unit is now going to say an attached or detached secondary residential dwelling unit that shares the building lot of a larger primary home, including having separate cooking and sanitary facilities. We okay with that?
The articles were 9 and what?
We took out 9. It's just going to say
Yeah, 9.
Article 16.
Thank you.
Because 9 was an ordinance and we do by local law. Marbletown, maybe they do. I think they
Yeah.
did it by local law.
They probably did.
Then the existing short-term rental, we changed effective date of this code to say as of, and the has to come out, as of December 31, 2021. That goes along with the idea that we are going to start with grandfathering first. And so September, hoping that this is passed and adopted by September and filed with the state, September 1st through December 31, we would only accept grandfathering applications, which we talk about further in the code. And then beginning January 1 or January 2, it would actually, oh no, didn't we say January 8th because of the
Because of our
work?
workshop
Yeah,
meeting.
we would start accepting
Alright.
new applications. So the existing and just saying, and it meets the criteria of section 14026K of this code. I managed to get the right, I managed to get the right reference. Then I've added in a definition for a new operating short-term transient rental. A short-term transient rental not in operation prior to December 31, 2021, or one which does not meet the standards of 14026AK of the code. So even if it's existing right now, if they're not, if they don't meet the standards of K, it's not grandfathered in.
So if there's any kind of violation or anything, or are you?
It wouldn't so much be a
variance?
violation, it would mean that they like, well, like the campers or trailers, they wouldn't meet the standards. Now, they won't be able to be a new one because they're not going to meet the standards, but I just wanted to define what a new one would be, which is a grandfathered one.
Mhm.
Maybe the second part isn't necessary. Maybe we just say one not in operation. What I didn't want to imply was that anybody who's operating now is grandfathered in. You have to be you have to meet all the standards to be grandfathered in. That is covered in the code.
Yeah,
That second section probably isn't necessary then.
mhm.
What do you think, Mary Lou?
Leave it, take it out, either way.
I'm gonna just take it out. I think it's gonna be clearer to just say December
I
31,
myself tend to like less language rather than more, unless
Yep.
you really need it.
gone. Non-owner occupied, this was based on our conversation. So a STR unit that is not the primary residence of the owner for at least 180 days in the calendar year, and the owner is not present in the dwelling or is not present on the same parcel while the residence is being used as a short-term rental. So basically what we're saying by this, and you tell me if you want to go that route, we're saying in order to be owner occupied, non-owner occupied. So it's not, probably the better way to do this is look at owner occupied, because all I did was turn it into a negative. So it is the primary residence for at least 180 days, and the owner's present in the dwelling or is present on the same parcel. So to be owner occupied, we're saying you have to be physically present on the parcel. It might be a secondary building on your property, but it's either you're present in the building and the people are staying in the same building with you. Now, maybe that's not what we wanted to do, but
enforce it.
through, the only way to enforcement is if there's a complaint, it's gonna have to
Right.
investigate. I mean, basically, when they fill out the application, they're telling us whether they're in. I agree, it's not easily enforceable, but we said we wanted to set a standard for owner and non-owner of 180 days.
Well, and I think also to clarify, owner occupied could mean what you're saying. It could also mean that the person is there for 180 days and they rent it for 180 days and they're not necessarily there.
So then we, if that's the case,
Because that's how it reads.
then we should take, well,
Oh, and the owner is present. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. So it would be,
instead of saying and, maybe we could say or the owner's present in the dwelling
yeah,
or is
because we
present.
were, I think. we were
Because if
trying to
it's
say
less than
rented in
180
part.
days, yeah, that's the rental in part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So,
or there.
I think it should be or. The other way to do it is just say,
Or in both of them,
yes,
non and.
Yes.
non and owner.
yeah.
I think the non-owner should say and. Because if they,
That's why I asked
Yeah, yeah.
that. That's why. I asked.
yeah.
Now, the other way to do it is just say, if you're there, if you live there 180 days, whether you're there present or not, it's owner occupied.
Right.
Which is actually what we just did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. So primary residence, I've just beefed it up a little bit. The person's domicile where they usually live in the town of Rochester. I've added in whether on a full-time or part-time basis for at least 180 days in the calendar year. Typically a house, including any habitable accessory structures on the same property. This includes accessory dwelling units located on the same parcel. So if you live in a home 180 days a year, your accessory dwelling, you don't have to also live there 180 days a year.
It
You
might,
have to switch back and forth.
okay, I think, I'm thinking about this accessory dwelling unit. I think we need to call it secondary dwelling units instead of accessory.
Okay,
That when the accessory
Right,
dwelling unit
because I'm
law gets
thinking
passed.
Also, we're outlawing multifamily housing and the way it reads
Yep.
with accessory, it's a little confusing.
I get you. I'm
Okay.
with you on that. So let's change that to secondary.
So it's gotta move down.
Yeah, now.
Oh, that's okay, because for me, it's easy because it's in red, so it'll move easily. So it's gonna move to after red and whole. And we're gonna change it in
It's in.
the primary, instead of saying accessory, it's gonna say secondary. Okay, rental. An agreement granting use or possession of a residence in whole or in part to a person or group in exchange for consideration valued in money, goods, labor, credits, or other valuable consideration. That's straight out of the standard textbook legal definition of a rental.
What'd you do, go to Black's Law Dictionary?
Probably. That's probably where I
So
went.
is this the outlet that is
No,
not?
that it should work.
Okay.
The insurance one.
Then we have rented in part, an STR in a primary residence as defined above, that is being occupied in part by the owner and in part by two or less STR guests simultaneously. That was, the two or less was our
Mhm.
decision.
Right.
Rented in whole is an STR in a dwelling units being occupied entirely by STR guests for the rental duration. Does that seem okay to everybody?
Mhm.
Then secondary dwelling unit, we just did. The short-term transient rental, we added in for you and the or part, so the use of a parcel for the rental or lease of any or part of any residential use, single family, is it not working?
Nope.
Oh,
That's okay.
that one is still tripped then, and I don't know where the breaker is for that.
That's all right. When it goes, when my computer runs out, I'm going home.
one. I might have another extension cord I can plug out of there.
If you do, that's great.
Let me look real quick.
Don't let the fire inspector know we're using this many extension cord.
I think it has to plug to that. I think there's another one.
Feel like I'm putting up.
We're gonna have
Christmas
to
lights.
invest in tables with
Oh, yeah, with the things and like,
I know this one works because Bee's using it, so.
Yes, it does. Don't know.
I don't think two computers are gonna.
No. Never know.
Okay. So that's just the clarification there. Moving forward, vacant property, we added the word unit. So then applicable law, section, this is G2. Just clarifying, permits are a 2-year period, subject to annual fire and safety inspection. Ownership of properties, we added in number 2, and we already talked a lot about that, so I think we can move on. We beat that one to death already. Number 3 is, so you can have one owner occupied and one non-owner occupied STR. But it's 2 properties, not 2 permits, so you're allowed. Should we just say 2 properties and not even, I don't even know we need to add that if we just say 2 properties.
Right, you mean the word permit?
No, the one owner occupied and one non-owner occupied. If we just say you're only allowed 2 properties, you're allowed as many permits per property as you.
There was a reason why we kept it like that, and I'd have to read.
I don't, think we need it anymore though, the way we've toned this down. If we say you can only have permits for 2 different properties, you're only gonna have one owner occupied. Oh, no, you might have more than one owner occupied. You could live, well, I don't know.
It says multiple permits on the same property
Yeah.
shall count as one, but then are we creating like a multiple dwelling situation?
No, because if you have, say, for example, you have your main house and you had 2 other dwelling units on your property.
Right.
You would need to get a permit with your inspection for each one separately. So you need to get 3 permits. But because it's all one property, we're only going to count it as one for this section of code. What we don't want is people buying up multiple properties and turning them into short-term rentals. But once you own the property, you own the property. You're not taking it away from somebody else. So,
Creates a bungalow colony.
bungalow colony actually falls under multifamily housing, I think, so.
The
it wouldn't
reason
be
I was
allowed.
asking is because if you've got that many accessory buildings, do you then become?
Bungalow colony is like a co-op. They, usually each one is owned independently. It's like, it's kind of like a condominium situation, I believe.
Yeah.
like the fireman's camp, each
Oh, I know
unit is owned individually, but the property as a whole.
But then how would we?
But what I'm thinking of is like a farmer. Okay, a farmer could have outbuildings that he would want to rent, which is what used to happen, and they were bungalows, so to speak. That's what they were.
Yeah, I don't know that that wouldn't be a bungalow colony in this.
STR.
I guess if you have the density, if you have the acreage, and they're all real dwelling.
It would have to be a
units,
dwelling unit.
then
Yes, I'm
yes.
saying.
you could.
Under our definitions, the term dwelling does not include bungalows.
There you go.
Okay. So I have dwellings that, so what constitutes a bungalow?
It's defined in our code already. And that's
Yeah.
the ones,
It's a
the
seasonal
exceptions are already defined within our 140.
I just don't want
Bungalow is not
anyone
defined.
confusing
Bungalow's not.
multiple
Okay.
permits.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
So maybe the committee wants to put that in.
Yeah,
So I don't quite know what it would be.
yeah.
We have a
Um,
section on them.
Yeah. So
I don't remember, we talked about this. and we
I don't
switched it,
think
and
we
then we
need,
switched
I
it
don't
back,
think
and
we need it
I can't remember
because
what-
we're saying you can only have permits for 2 properties at any given time.
Right.
So it no longer pertains to one owner occupied and one non-owner occupied.
Okay.
So you could have,
I think you could just take that out.
so you can do 2 different properties
And not live.
and not live at either?
Well, you could live at one,
No, well, what we're allowing is, if we take that distinction out, then what we are allowing is someone who doesn't live.
oh, you're right.
Right.
That's why we left it in, because we had this discussion.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, let's leave it then. We can always, a small change like that, we can make down the road if we have another change of
Yeah,
heart
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
You're right. Okay. This was what we talked about on the application, so designation of STR properties, a short-term transient rental, or all short-term transient rentals shall be designated as owner occupied or non-owner occupied as defined herein. So when they apply, they have to check a box, basically.
Mhm.
It's owner occupied, which means I live there 180 days a year, or I'm gonna be in residence when people are there, or it's not owner occupied. And that'll be on the application form. Then the tax, you have to, this is just a reminder that under county law, you have to pay this. Section K goes into the application for the existing. So I've clarified the grandfathering. The town of Rochester will offer a one-time grandfathering recognizing existing STR units operating prior to December 31st, 2021. This is for both owner occupied and non-owner occupied STR units. So the people that say, I've already invested in a second home and I'm doing it this way, we're recognizing that. Then we say to qualify for grandfathering existing use of property shall meet the standards and produce documentations of compliance of A, B, and C below. All property owners who fail to produce such documentation shall be required to file and be considered a new operating short-term transient rental. So A is you have to provide the certificate of authority dated prior to December 31st, 2021. You have to provide proof of operation of an STR between December 31, 2016 and December 31, 2021. That's where we decided a 5-year period of time. And have submitted a complete application and be subject to annual fire and safety inspection. Then grandfathered STR units shall be allowed to operate subject to biannual application renewal and annual inspection until such use ceases to exist or the property changes ownership.
Do you want to change that to annual
To
fire and
biennial.
safety inspection?
Change it to what?
To fire and safety inspection instead of just inspection?
Sure. And the biannual was
Biannual means twice a year. It
Twice.
should be Biennial.
biennial. Thank you. We looked it up last
I'm
week.
gonna forget that.
By, ENIAL,
Yeah.
or is it two L's?
It's
One
one
L.
L.
Okay. Of annual fire and safety. Okay, then grandfathered units which exceed H3 of this code shall be considered non-conforming and be allowed to continue. So if somebody owns more than two right now, we're not going to make them sell a property. Now, we did talk about having a sunset clause. I didn't include that right now. Right now, we're just saying it continues as a non-conforming
I think
use.
what we decided is we're gonna see what the Ulster County Planning Board says
Right.
about that.
Right.
And if they are, like, oh, then we
They
can
were-
include a sunset.
They
clause.
were okay with the existing ones.
Yeah, that's
They're
what-
not gonna like that we're gonna have a cap that's gonna allow future non-owner occupied. They're gonna come back and say, you should set your cap as what it is now, because that was their original recommendation. And don't allow any future ones, but
And then you can overrule them.
yeah. Cap of new, non-grandfathered, non-owner occupied AR permits. I wanted to be as clear as we could be. So number of new short-term transient rental, non-owner occupied permits, there will be no cap on owner occupied units. And this is to maintain the permanent housing stock availability for all income levels of residents. We're going to establish the initial cap for the year 2022 at the Town Board 2022 organizational meeting after the initial grandfathering period of registration. That way we'll know how many we have. Henceforth, the cap number of available permits, not including those that have been grandfathered, will be established for the following year by the Town Board annually on or before August 1st of each calendar year, utilizing a percentage of the number of housing units of the town of Rochester assessor final tax roll for that year, and the number of grandfathered permits for that same year. And we're not going to say what the cap is going to be. We're not going to limit ourselves or future boards.
And I
So
just want the record to reflect that Mike came up with henceforth, not me.
I did.
Somebody's gonna go, some lawyer wrote that.
Yeah, no,
10 years down the road.
that was me.
And just to, Chris, one of the things we talked about with that is it gives us the flexibility to maybe even set two different types of caps for the two different types of
Right.
owner occupied versus non-owner occupied.
Because we have an estimate of what we think. This way, if you did a chart, and we may do a chart that goes with this to explain it. So from September to December this year, if we adopt this law before it goes into effect, we only take grandfather permits during that period of time. We establish what the number really is. We're guessing, we don't really know how many exist. Moving forward, that's the only window of time for grandfathering. If you were doing it before and you don't apply in that 4-month period, you're not grandfathered in, you're new. So then moving forward, starting January, which is, we're going to talk about that coming up. There'll be a cap for new non-owner occupied. If you come in with an application for an owner occupied, there's never going to be a cap on it. You apply, you get your, so the cap only is a non-owner occupied moving forward. I think we can't get much fairer. Grandfathered STR units and owner occupied units shall not be capped restricted. So there we're clarifying that. Application and inspection fee. Oh, there's where we did the biennial.
Yeah, but it's still applicable back there too.
Yep, you're right. You're right. I was like, I thought we wrote this in.
And I think it's misspelled.
It is.
Oh, there's an extra N in there.
And I need an I in there somewhere.
Just
Oh,
anywhere.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
BIE.
BIE. Yeah, you're right.
You've been looking at this a lot, Mike. It's okay.
Yeah. Yep. And you have to file a separate application and a separate fee for each separate permit and inspection of each dwelling unit which contains or functions as a short-term rental. So applications here's where we say applications to operate a new STR shall be available as of January 10, 2022, which is the, what do we say? That was the Monday after our potential workshop meeting. Organizational, sorry. Initial permit application has the following. You have to designate whether you're owner occupied or non-owner occupied. You also have to designate if it's going to be rented in part or rented in whole. And it could be both for the rented in part and rented in whole. Somebody may check both boxes. They might want to do both. The owner that's why I use or in the first part and or in the second part.
Right.
And then the hosting platform information, sorry about the spaces. That was just Word with all the changes that we've been making. So on the description, we've had such pushback on this floor plan thing, and I looked at what Marbletown did. Marbletown just says, state the occupancy of each bedroom and sleeping room and the methods of ingress and egress. Is the board okay with that rather than, I think if they designate on the application which rooms they are, when the inspector goes there, he's going to deal with it.
Right.
It will eliminate a lot of people's worries and fears, and I think it's still going to achieve the same thing.
I'm okay with that. It makes it a little simpler.
Okay, that was my goal. Now the plat, I still feel strongly about this one, but we've simplified it. We're saying an aerial plat, then we clarify it doesn't need to be a survey. And this can be obtained free of charge from many online sources. You can go to Parcel Viewer, you can go to Google Earth. We understand it may not be exactly dimensional correct, but at least it shows us what is surrounding you. Should we take out the well and septic system though? Because that's not going to show those things. Just reading through it.
Well, can we get some kind of a report on the septic, at least what size it is?
Well, no, this is of
I know,
neighboring
it's not gonna
properties.
show the area
Yeah,
stuff, I know.
yeah, that part's coming up of the septic, but I'm saying, should we take that out of the aerial view?
So I guess
Not
what would
gonna
be the
see it.
benefit of, I mean, I guess the benefit is knowing that they.
Well, when
know
we were
where your
talking
septic
about
system is.
a more drawn survey, it would
Yeah.
show where the well was,
Right.
but.
Right.
I think we've simplified it, so it's not really gonna show that. And we'll also take out the fire pits and fireplaces, because you're not gonna see them in an aerial view.
Oh, yeah, I see. What I was, because
We're
when
doing
I,
area.
for example, when I do my organic certification application, I print out like a Google map of the farm and then I just draw in little
Oh,
things. And that's what I thought we were saying.
Well,
for
and-
this.
do we wanna leave it then?
I think we could leave some of the stuff so that the inspector kind of knows.
Okay.
I don't know if it's necessary to have well and septic, but
Let's,
I would think they would be prime. Don't you need to know? if
Yeah.
there's a well
Yeah.
or septic?
let's leave it for now,
Yeah,
and we can
but I
see.
think that's what I was visualizing when I read this, is that
Yeah.
just like drawing over a.
Well, it's gonna show the buildings and structures, the parking spaces is gonna be shown, because just in the aerial view, you can see where parking is, driveways, streets, streams, other water bodies. They're gonna all show in that picture automatically. So the only thing they would have to draw in is well, septic and
Right.
fire
It's just
pits
an
or outdoor.
approximate
Put an
location.
X where-
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
you know, an X
Yep.
that says-
Let's leave it alone then.
You can add the word applicable existing features, because some people might not have the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know that we need to, though.
Well, it says existing features,
Including. I see.
including, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The garbage removal, we just need to know how they're gonna do it, jurisdiction. And then we've added in a copy of the Commissioner of Finance Certificate of Authority is as part of the requirements. I've added in inspections, code enforcement officer or fire inspector, because it's probably gonna be our fire inspector who's doing these. And so shall be done for the initial and annually thereafter. We've added in that they have to comply with New York State Building Code requirements and have no open violations. Moving down to letter S, renewal applications shall never be subject to any cap provided the property remains under same ownership. So once you get your permit, you continue to operate it. Still have to reapply for your permit. You still have to get your permit, but you'll never be subject to a cap. Cap will only be new, non-owner occupied. And I just moved the copies number 1 down to number 2 because it just seemed like the number 2 should have really be number 1. So I switched the order and we changed it from November to September. So if you get your permit after September, you're good till the following December, not December of that year. We talked about the exterior advertising signs. We found that in the we pulled that number, Mary Lou, out of the our sign chart for home occupations. And I added the temporary structure. I added the word ingress and egress to emergency exit. Just think it clarifies more. And that is it. Now except I made it effective September 1st or as soon thereafter upon the filing. So in case it's later than
Right, we don't
September
have to.
1st. But if it gets adopted and it comes back sooner, it's still not going to go into effect until September 1st.
So why don't you say the local law shall be effective the later of September 1st, 2021, or upon filing. Right?
Yep. Or upon the, yep,
Okay,
I'll take out the soon thereafter.
right.
Or upon the filing. Okay. So, thoughts? Did we get it?
Well, I was gonna make a motion.
Do we have an application to go with it?
Not yet. We have to develop an
Well,
application, but we have to get a local law before we have an application. So,
And it's got to go back to the Ulster
Yeah, I know
County.
it does, but I'm just saying.
so the motion would be to
But
refer
yeah,
it to
good idea
the,
to get one of
there would be a
those.
couple motions. One would be refer it to Ulster County Planning Board and the Town of Rochester Planning Board, and then the other motion
It
would be
doesn't have
to,
to go back to the Town of Rochester Planning
Doesn't?
Board. No, I mean, you can. You absolutely can do it if you'd like to,
okay.
but you
It
don't have
has
to.
to go
The
back to
Ulster
Ulster.
County, it does have to go back.
What do you think about referring it to our planning board? Doesn't hurt.
I think they should have it.
Okay. So,
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to transmit this new
it's local law
local
3.
law 3 of
2021
2021 to the Ulster County Planning Board and the Town of Rochester Town Board for comment.
Planning board.
Planning board.
What did I say?
You
Town
said
board.
town
I'm
board.
sorry.
You want to do it again, Aaron?
Yeah, okay, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to transmit local law 3 of 2021 to the Ulster County Planning Board and the Town of Rochester Planning Board for comment. And to schedule a public hearing.
Isn't that a separate resolution?
We could be.
Let's do that as
Okay,
separate
sorry.
resolution. Let's
All
just
right.
do the referral first.
So
So,
that's it.
And put for recommendation rather than for comment, because
For
that's what it goes to the
recommendation.
county for.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Any discussion? That doesn't need to be a roll call vote. No. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Hang on one second. Let me hit save. And I'm gonna do this as of 7/1. Saved. Okay, now, do we want to do it at our workshop meeting? Or do we want to do a special meeting?
Do you want to have the referrals
yeah, that's my
We have
question.
time.
beforehand? The recommendations back?
Yeah,
Because they're not
now-
gonna-
We probably can get, well, let's talk about that. We probably can get on the county, on the town planning board agenda for the 12th.
Maybe,
Maybe.
Maybe.
it depends on how busy they are.
Yeah,
The
depends how many
county
things are on the
has a
agenda.
long agenda. I did give Rob a heads up it was coming. They meet next Wednesday. It's Thursday. If I get it to him tomorrow,
Don't forget we have a holiday.
I know, he said he would consider. So I can give it a shot. It may not end up on their agenda till whatever the first
Till
Wednesday in
August.
August is.
So that would be August 4th, which would be before our.
And our meeting is on the
August
5th.
Yeah,
Why don't we schedule the public hearing for August 5th then?
And we
Yeah.
can beg him to get us if he doesn't have it till the 4th.
He may put us on because he said it's your third referral of the same.
You want to
So-
do a
Right, so
public
if-
hearing the same night as the meeting?
Well, do we want to do it a different night?
You don't get it back till the 4th.
You want to do it on the 12th, the following Thursday as a special meeting? Kate, if we adopted it on the 12th and it went to the state on the 13th, remember, we still have to do seeker, but that's pretty straightforward. Would we get it back in time, do you think, before the 1st?
You just have to have it filed. You don't have to have it back. Like parking is not
Okay.
filed yet. I just checked.
Yeah.
You can check on the,
Oh, so as soon as
usually
it's filed,
within 3 weeks. I-
Okay.
I
Yeah,
usually do
and-
something.
okay,
you can drive it up if they're open and make an
Okay.
appointment and they'll do it that day.
okay. So let's do the
I've
public
driven
hearing on the
Well, as many
12th.
times.
August 12th.
Is that's a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the
Yes.
calendar, so.
The second Thursday is usually ECC here, right?
No, they moved
They
to the
moved to
last
Tuesday.
Tuesday of the
Last
month.
Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, last Tuesday, yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
folks want me here or not? I'm okay either way. That's a day that I'm actually free in August.
Why don't you pencil us in and we'll clarify.
for
Yeah.
6.
And then Mike will call me that day at 4 and go, we don't need you tonight.
Yeah. Do we want to do it at 6:30? What do we want to do? It's,
You have to drive here now.
you're the one who's working into the evening.
Well, yeah, I usually work till 9:30, so.
Yeah, so 6 or 6:30 doesn't
yeah,
change it
right.
for you.
Yeah.
Is 6 okay? 6:30? Okay,
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for local law 3 of 2021 for the evening of August 12th, 2021 at 6:30 PM
at the Harold Lipton.
at
Community.
the Harold Lipton Community Center.
And authorize the town clerk to circulate notice.
And authorize the town clerk to circulate notice.
Okay, have a motion, have a second from Chris.
This is all pending paperwork being back, Mary Lou, correct?
No, you can still.
You can still have
You
the
might not
public
be able to
hearing.
make a decision,
We're just
but you can have the
hoping.
public.
We can't make a
hoping.
decision, but we can still have the public hearing, but this way, we probably will have the input from the county. And if we have to make any changes that night, we could potentially vote on it that night. With any luck. We've,
Not if you make changes.
oh, you're right,
Then you're gonna have another special
8
meeting
days.
8 days later.
Yeah. 7 days minus, not including Sunday,
That's
got it.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
all in favor?
Um,
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, thank you. I think we got a good law. I really do. Next, Marbletown First Aid Shared Services Agreement. We talked about this. I'm just gonna jump in and make a resolution and then we can talk about it. So I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the supervisor to make payment of $1,500 to Marbletown First Aid Unit. And to amend the contract presented to state such, and that we make payment to Cohonson Accord First Aid Squad for the additional $3,500 budgeted. Do I need to go any further than that, Mary Lou?
You want to amend your contract with them
Oh,
as well?
yes, we would need to, and to amend the contract with Cohonson Accord First Aid Squad.
To reflect the
To
additional
reflect the additional
$3,500.
$3,500. And to ask both units to provide a 5-year plan of funding to the town board prior to September 1st, 2021, so we can properly budget for next.
Oh, I understand that. Does that give them enough time?
Well, request is the key word. We can ask for it.
Yeah, it's not a conditional.
It's not a conditional. You're just authorizing me to I'm gonna send both of them their monies. We're gonna amend, we're
You're
gonna,
sign the contracts, then you're gonna send them.
right,
down.
okay, we're gonna send the contracts, then we're gonna send the money. And we're gonna ask them to give us a 5-year plan so we
Why don't you
can,
make the 5-year plan a separate
Okay.
resolution?
okay.
Because this is getting,
Just got it
Are
written
you
down.
getting it?
put a slash in between.
So the motion is to pay Marbletown First Aid Unit $1,500 and to amend the contract as presented. And to pay Cohasset Accord First Aid Squad an additional $3,500 and to amend the contract as currently in existence. Period, right?
Period.
Okay. Discussion. Here's my feeling. If we give them the 1,500 and now we give Cohasset Accord 25,500,
30, what was that?
we gave them 22, we're giving them 3,500. It is a 1 to 17 exact ratio. I know that doesn't quite cover the number of homes. It's not 100 to 1,700, it's 100 to about 2,000. It closes the gap. It recognizes that Marbletown First Aid Squad is doing a service for us and has not been receiving any money. But I also look at it as it was their choice to go out and hire EMTs without having any discussion with us prior. I'm not saying it's not important, but we didn't have any input on the costs of this. So we're going to give them what we can for now. We're going to honor the two, and we're going to diligently negotiate to move forward to solve the problem next year. So it's my
Yeah,
bridge solution for this year.
I think it's been a challenging conversation that I'm grateful for, but I think that's a well-rounded solution that acknowledges the limitations on all sides. And I also I love the idea of moving forward with a better plan, because I think both agencies should get as much funding as we can get.
Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed.
I'd like to thank Glenn Pomerantz for educating us, because when we got the request, I thought, let's support Marbletown, but Glenn created perspective on how much both agencies do.
And it is a big difference between ALS, which is advanced life support, and BLS, which is basic life support. Am I saying that correctly, B? I believe I am. So, and they have to have an EMT on the rig no matter what, but still, Cohasset Accord is not set up right now to do the ALS. They do BLS, and that is a very important service. And I think we can work to bridge the gap between the two and try to help them. It sounded like what Glenn said is they really want to move ahead. They just are trying to figure out how to make it with their volunteer model. And, I don't want to diminish what all those volunteers do in any way, shape, or form. But I also don't want to diminish what Marbletown has, the struggles they came up with.
Mhm.
They didn't have volunteers, so they did sign a contract. I'm not saying that that was bad of them to do, but, we can't just respond and suddenly give them, initially, they wanted a lot more money than 5,000. The 5,000 was a number I put in there as a placeholder in the budget just to have a conversation. It didn't mean that we were going to give them $5,000. And, it's a bigger discussion to have. So I think it's a solution. It moves the conversation further forward, and everything that's come out of it is good, in my opinion.
Going forward, though, we know that we appreciate what they do. Do we as a board see our Cohasset First Aid Squad going forward with some kind of a hybrid plan? Is that something we can suggest? to
I
help
think we
them?
should work with them to try to achieve that. That's, not tell them they have to,
No,
but,
Right, we have no
with
authority
them.
over
right,
them.
but work with them. Because I heard from Glenn Pomerantz and from other members that they're not opposed to the idea. They're sort of struggling with how to do it. And I think we can help that discussion. the idea of an ambulance improvement district that was raised by Marbletown, looking into it because of multi-jurisdictional, there's a lot of inherent problems. And, the simple solution would be if the state legislature treated ambulance districts like they do fire districts. But until they do, we would have to have a multi-jurisdictional, and we would have to figure, like the Cohasson Fire District gets money from Warsing, gets money from Rochester. It's proportional based on property valuation. If we were to do that, we still have to have a baseline of a budget to work with. And if it's not a registered district like the fire districts are, that whole budget process is pretty hard to, you got to put a number on it. And the other thing is, from my understanding, Mary Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, like the fire districts can't bill somebody if they come to your house. Whereas right now the ambulance can bill. If they go to a specific district, then it's totally funded by taxes and any donations they may receive or things like that, or other revenue, but they can't charge for services anymore. So this whole development district, it's kind of like if it were a water district, you have a finite amount. You bill them X number of dollars per gallon of what they use. How are you going to bill residents on service? The house that doesn't use them, do they bill nothing? It's just very complicated. And is it just houses? If there's a road accident and it's somebody driving through town who doesn't live in town, who gets billed then? I know the
But
fire
that doesn't
department,
really address the hybrid plan.
it doesn't, but that's why, what I'm trying to say is why the development district doesn't work.
Yes.
A lot of people think is a solution to the problem, and because of the multi-jurisdictional lines, it doesn't work. I've really looked into it, and it just is not a feasible model.
The other piece of this presented to me was the fact that, okay, the town is giving them X amount of dollars. If they are short-staffed and they cannot respond, where does that money go? What I'm saying is they're taking the money, and
Mhm.
therefore they're supposed to service everyone as they call.
Correct.
But they are short drivers sometimes, they are short EMTs,
Mhm.
but the town continues to give them this money, not taking away from what these men and women do. That's
Right.
not where I'm going.
Right.
Where I'm going is based on the money. Do they have to show us, calls and anything that they didn't do? I mean, so we get a ratio of
Well,
what's happening with the money.
when we
You
renew
asked
the
for a breakdown,
contract,
but I'm asking for a little
well,
bit
we
of
do
number.
ask for the number of calls too.
Right.
We do ask for that, and they do provide that to us. As Mary Lewis pointed out, we have no obligation to give them anything. And I don't mean to say that we don't want to give them anything, because we appreciate what they do. But we are allowed under New York state law to enter into an agreement with a private agency.
Right.
We could go directly to a totally private agency like Mobile Life. We could choose to do that and sign a contract with Mobile Life and be done with it. We'd pay an awful lot more money.
I would
So,
rather give it to a volunteer agency. If
actually,
it's gonna
yeah,
be that kind of.
but we do ask
But I'm
them,
saying,
with the annual renewal, part of the contract
They always
is
give us-
they have to give us back a budgeting.
service.
Yeah.
So B is what you're asking for them also to include in that, the number of calls that they were not able to go
do,
to?
Yes,
Okay,
And you want to see improvements?
certainly, everyone
That's the
wants
money.
to see improvements, and that's why I would ask for the hybrid model if it would improve their service calls.
well, and that's where the second resolution kind of
I-
starts to
I'm
enter
not-
into that.
I'm
We
not
can
Yeah.
add
sick with that, but
Yeah.
that's exactly correct.
Did we vote on this first resolution, Kate?
No,
No.
Okay, this is still discussion.
I've
yes,
Okay. As far as people prepared, can we vote on it and then we can go to the second? Because I think we're sort of morphing into the second discussion. So all in favor of the resolution? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Now the second, that we request the two first aid, Cohasset Airport First Aid Squad and Marbletown First Aid Unit to provide prior to, let's say, September 15th. I have to have the preliminary budget done by the 30th.
I know.
So by September 15th, to provide to the town of Rochester supervisor a list of the number of calls from the previous calendar year or previous 12-month period.
Would do.
Let's
no,
say,
in September, that'd be 9 months. You only
Yeah.
get 3/4.
how about we just say the number of calls year to date? And to provide a 5-year analysis, not financial plan, but a 5-year analysis of the
Financial need.
financial need.
I might, if it's, what if we have them send us like 3 years of,
Well, they already are sending us a yearly.
oh, okay. So we
yeah.
got
How do we
all
get
that.
yearly from Marbletown though?
They provided last year's for us. We can
Okay,
ask them for
all right.
previous. So,
Okay.
okay, why don't we'll do that. Just provide us 3 years previous financial records and a 5-year plan of financial need. A 5-year plan forward of financial need. Sorry.
And,
And
and,
give us 3 years if they can. Of
Number of calls.
number of calls from both, and unfortunately.
Number of calls
that we're
unable
Not able to. make.
To respond.
Both companies.
response rate.
Response rate.
that's
Yeah,
what it
a
would be.
response rate is
Okay.
better. Yeah. I
It
like
sounds
that.
better.
Did you really get all
You
that?
don't-
If- I'm impressed.
You don't want to say
Kate's
a
back.
negative, you don't want a negative.
Yeah.
Because they're not negative.
You want to read it back?
Everything about
Because
that
I
is
don't really
everything
remember
about
how
that
we got
is
arrived at it. So thank you,
Yeah.
Kate.
Great stuff.
Was that your motion?
That was my motion.
Request that KPAS and Marbletown, prior to September 15th, provide to the town of Rochester supervisor a list of calls year to date, a 3-year previous financial record, and provide a 5-year analysis of financial need along with the 3-year list of response rate.
Nice.
We can reword it. a little bit.
That's okay.
Goes in.
No, you got it.
I'll second.
Okay. I think we've discussed it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay.
You need a good way to make it
Yep.
valid.
Okay. Moving forward on the zoning designation change. At the last meeting, we voted 3-1 to continue discussing. Mary Lou is now back. She can talk to us about seeker.
Okay, I would like to speak about this before she goes into some seeker.
Okay.
Speak on seeker. We agreed to allow Mr. Grasso to change his application.
Correct.
And then we received a letter from Mr. Davis, which I think should go in the record, because
Yep.
he's stating how he feels about this being changed.
Yep.
And so before we even look at seeker, it's my belief that we should read this in and then have a little discussion on this.
Okay. I did put in your packet today. Because part of what Mary Lou discovered is that 25 acres is the magic number. And so I did include a map in your packets today. So we received this letter from Mr. Davis. Well, Kate circulated it today, came stated yesterday. It's in reference to Mr. Grasso's request for a zoning district change. Before making a determination, a board review the following. It says increasing the road access to the land and propose more intensive development will cause runoff into wetlands and onto the road due to slopes down to Beehive as cleared lands won't capture water like woodlands and grasses do at the present. There'll be more traffic, more plowing, more salting, more clearing, more town maintenance for the new road extension that puts salt and sand and other matter into the surface waters that are protected. And DEC ACOA permitting probably will be necessary for any road extension expansion due to the soil conditions. He says the unnamed stream that runs into the Millbrook Creek runs through the parcel, and the proposed road extension could encroach on the setbacks in the proposed backlot, and development could cause runoff into the unnamed stream. The current access proposed to be expanded goes through lands identified by the DEC as possible wetland extensions of the identified wetlands on a neighboring lot and are visibly waterlogged when touring the parcel, especially all along the right-hand side of this road. Proposed extension of Beehive is swampy for at least a third of the way into proposed lot 1, making placement of septic and structures a potential problem. So they meet setback requirements. Proposed lot 1 on the right may not meet lot depth requirements and setbacks for the full lot to be able to build without a variance, but we do not have any final plans. Proposed lot 5 could have problems with septic and structure placement as well, depending on where the unnamed stream that flows into the Millbrook Creek runs through the lot and where the wetlands feed is located, so as to have 200 feet back from the stream for septic and 100 feet from the high water mark of the Millbrook Creek. This is all in all, slope, stream, and wet soils, probable wetlands, and some lots that look like they might not meet bulk standards. Keeping the zoning R5 and developing larger lots looks more sensible. So that's my battery said it was running low, but my charger wasn't pushed in tight. I got nervous for a second. So that was his letter. I did, after the board talked, I had called him and asked him to. So we did get the change of application, as we had instructed Mr. Grasso, that R2 was more appropriate than AR3, primarily because of the surrounding properties, that the AR3 would probably be spot zoning. He did change the application and we received this. We also got from the highway superintendent, which is addressed to the planning board, but it's pertinent here. From the highway superintendent, he supports the plans to extend Beehive and bring the road up to town specs for the Mark Grasso subdivision. The town and the highway department would benefit from this project greatly. It would allow the highway department to have a larger and safer turnaround point at the end of Beehive Road. So there's sort of two differing opinions there about the road.
What's the different opinion?
Well, Jeff is saying that extending the road is a good thing, and Jerry is saying that the road may have problems being extended. So that's what I mean. If you do look on the parcel viewer map, there are an awful lot of trails, sort of they probably were logging trails at some point that go through that property. My feeling on it is if we enter into the seeker discussion, an awful lot of what Mr. Davis proposes would be reviewed.
You see, Mike, the reason I don't want to move forward with this yet is because it was my understanding last week that we had voted to allow Mr. Grasso to go forward with his amendment.
Right.
Not that we all agree to just blatantly move forward.
No, I agree. So the amendment has been presented to us, and so the going forward would be establishing lead agency for seeker. That's the next step. That's not blatantly going forward with it. That's the next step.
But
He's presented the amendment to us at the last meeting.
yes, and I agree, but the only thing in there was the amended to go to Mr. Davis. We never really voted on the fact that
No, we weren't.
agreed or disagreed with his project.
He had already gone to Mr. Davis before we
Yes.
met last week.
I'm aware of that. Where I'm coming from is, I believe you stated something to the effect was the only thing this board was considering was the amendment that was going to Mr. Davis,
Correct.
not whether the project would go forward.
Well, the process, and I had this question for Mary Lou with the resolution too, like what are we bound to in that resolution? Because it's sort of, I think it's similar to the EEO where we can kind of say as a board, we're just not even gonna consider this and then it's done.
Mhm.
If we say, yeah, we're gonna move forward, then we're saying we're gonna go to the next step.
Right. And that's what I took it as. And the next step would be accepting the application and starting the seeker
As
process.
an R2.
Yes, because that's how it was reapplied to us as an R2.
Okay.
So I guess the first question is, Kate, any chance you have the minutes from the last meeting? to
I
see
just read
exactly
it
what the
today, and
resolution was?
I'm
Thank you.
thinking about it, and the way I took it was they were passing a resolution allowing an amendment to be made with Mr. Davis's office and an amendment to be made with the town board, but I didn't see much more after that they were agreeing to an
Whether
R2.
it was to move forward or whether.
It was more of just to allow him to amend it.
That's why I brought up what the difference is, because I like Jeff's letter and if it benefits the town to fix
Right.
the road, that's one thing.
Right.
But Mr. Davis's letter is more about the R5.
Agreed.
Chris, you're not fixing the road. You were waiting, would be then to wait for Mr. Grasso to bring it up to town specs to extend it.
Hmm.
What's there is usable at this time.
Right.
Well, I'm
What
just
would
saying.
be there may have problems.
I'm saying the road being fixed is different than an R5 versus an R2.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's true.
Well, actually, not totally. He could, it's an R5 zone. He has 24 acres. He could apply for a 4-lot, I'm just a
Yes.
theoretical. He could apply for a 4-lot subdivision and he could improve the road as part of that 4-lot subdivision, whether we did the rezoning or
Right,
not.
that's
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
Chris, I thought that's what you were
Yeah.
pointing out, that
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah.
issue of the road is kind of separate from making a zoning designation change, because we could make the zoning designation change and nothing could happen with the road at all. It's not conditioned
Well,
on,
Something would have to happen with the road because he wouldn't physically be
wanted
able
to
to do,
subdivide.
oh, I know.
if he wanted to subdivide.
Right.
Right, and Mary Lou has already said, because he's told us, presented this possible subdivision, that in seeker, we have to consider that. And that's kind of where I was looking to Mary Lou to give us some advisement on seeker. Because in my mind, what Jerry has brought up is valuable, but all this is part of the seeker review.
Mr. Davis is asking not to have it, in what I read, he's asking not to have it as an R2, but as an R5.
I don't disagree, that's what he's saying, but he's made a lot of statements here that, are not, a review of seeker would determine if these statements are actually true. If you look on the parcel viewer, there are no wetlands on this property. They are wetlands on the
Not
neighboring property.
established wetlands, but there is swampy. land
Agreed.
there.
And my point is, if we move forward with seeker, we can ask for those studies to be done. Otherwise,
But if we move forward with seeker, we're not gonna be able to go back to the R5.
no, we will, so.
Sure, you don't
That's
have
what
to
I'm
pass
So
it.
here's.
You don't have
the-
to pass
Seeker is
it.
the first step
seeker is
of
the first
of
step.
reviewing whether you want to change this. zone.
Exactly.
Can I,
Go ahead.
so
I'll go back.
basically we have, it's like the 3 packs. So because this is a legislative act, it comes to the town board,
Right,
we can just be like, no, and not do anything.
okay.
We could say, let's initiate the process of changing a local law, which this would be a law change. In order to do that, we have to do seeker, public hearing, all of that, right? We
Referral
can
to the county,
we
referral to the
can
local planning
still
board.
vote no at the end of that whole 3-month-long process.
Correct.
And I think on last week, when I voted no on that resolution is because I was thinking about this type of information and other information and thinking, I'm not inclined to vote yes on this. So that's why I was asking how binding that resolution is. If the feeling of the board is like, oh, I'm not inclined to vote for this.
Right.
Do we go through this 3-month-long process? Or if the board is thinking like, well, maybe I could be convinced, then but it is like a 3-month-long process, just like. all the others.
Minimum. And that's my point of, we have a request. We can do one of 2 things. We can just flat out say no. And as Mary Lewis said, we don't have to give a reason as a legislative board. We can just say no. Or we can accept the request, go through the review process, ask for an escrow account, have our consultants review, go through and, Mr. Davis has presented this information, but that's one source. Certainly,
He's the source when it comes to us at the zoning board. So how do we
ag-
can't.
agreed, but he is not a wetland specialist. He is not I'm not saying, I'm not diminishing what he brings to us, but clearly we can hire experts to review, just like we do on the planning board. And we review this. So we either say, no, we're not going to entertain it.
And you can say, and I'm not sure what the motion really was.
Well, there really
last
isn't a
time.
motion yet.
No,
We're
no,
just.
No,
last
discussing.
last time,
Oh, okay.
last time. I'm not sure if it was like, okay, we'll let him reapply, or if it was like, okay, he's reapplied, let's move forward.
He already did reapply before the meeting, so it
Right,
wasn't
but the
really to
po-
let him reapply.
He
So,
didn't reapply before the meeting. He asked to amend his application to change it from, he
Okay,
went from he went from R5 to AR3 or 2. No, I'm sorry. He went
went
from AR3
To R2.
to R2.
okay.
Yeah, I think what the motion was to consider the request based on a pending update to the actual application.
Okay,
Because we got the letter,
That's correct.
but the actual application to the code enforcement office hadn't been amended yet.
right.
And you said that came in. The actual,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, Jerry's office didn't redate this, so it's still dated 4/14, but it just says it was emailed.
right,
I can try to find it when it was emailed. I thought we had it already before our meeting
I
last.
think we had the letter that stated the intent.
We had the letter, okay.
Yeah.
Intent, but
Okay.
And the
Okay, so you were
explanation.
waiting for a new
Yeah,
application
right.
to determine what
Okay.
you want to do.
Right,
Okay.
because we had.
So that's where you are.
Yeah, that's where.
Okay,
Talk
so
amongst
then, so the
yourselves.
question is, do we entertain it and go and take the next steps, or do we just deny it? Can I let,
That's up to the board.
board want to let Jeff weigh in?
of course.
Okay,
As far as Jerry's letter, I haven't seen that, only heard you, you read it. There are many, many, many ways to, when you're building a road, to address runoff. So that's not really a big issue, because there's a lot of avenues that we deal with every day that covers runoff and wetlands and swampy areas and stuff like that. So I wouldn't get so hung up on, I mean, I understand what Jerry's saying, but we deal with that on an everyday basis, that sort of thing. So that's not really a big issue when it comes to extending roads. It may be more of a cost issue. But it's not something that could certainly stop from building a road. It makes a lot more requirements when you're extending a road or building a road for water runoff, salt, sand, whatnot. But it's not impossible, and it's not something that will hold up anything. It just, like I said, it may be more costly, but it's not impossible to do.
And the road improvement actually would be done by the developer,
Absolutely.
and then it would be turned over. So
Absolutely.
we wouldn't go through
Correct.
the expense
correct.
of all of the corrective actions.
Correct. The town would not have any responsibility in that at all, other than to inspect.
And to maintain if
And to
you
maintain it from
take it
there.
after.
Once it was turned over to us, but
Then
the
it's
highway superintendent would get the final say in whether it was accepted or not.
Correct.
And the other part is, we have a proposed subdivision, but really all we're considering is a zoning change.
Right.
That subdivision could be redesigned, could be,
Well, that's it.
Totally
We don't have
changed.
a solid plan at this time. So how
But-
can we make a decision?
but we're
without a
not,
solid
we're
plan?
not deciding on the subdivision, we're deciding
You're
on the
deciding,
zoning amendment.
Right.
And for me, I support completely this process. I think it is, I think it's democratic to allow people to appeal their zoning districts to boards. I think I support that as a course of action. But for me, what I want to see for myself, since it is a legislative act that the board is responsible for, the applicant has 100% right to apply. But for me, as a board member, what I want to see is like this parcel should be in this other district. Like I want to see like, for me, it has nothing to do with the subdivision. It's like, should this get 2-acre zoning? Is this the type of property that we want to see in a more densely zoned area? And so that to me is like, that's the question. We could be considering this completely separate from this project in another world.
Agreed.
So that to me is like, if I were just looking at this as I would on the zoning review committee, I would not zone this property R2. Part of it, I think, based on the non-to-scale map, is in the low yield well district, because there's a blob of that in the area. And because of the placement of the roads, this property is in an R5 zoned neighborhood where all the road access to those properties is R5. The neighboring properties are R2, but their road access is off of Cedar. So that to me is like, it's not a contiguous, and if we made that, that would be like a whole other question, is to make a through road from there. But that, when on last week, when we were talking about it, those were my reasons, is like, if I was just looking at this on its own, I wouldn't make the choice to zone this R2. And I don't, other than getting more lots on this land, there hasn't been any other thing presented that would, that this would do that couldn't, like, this land can still get subdivided, a road can still be put in, like all of those things. So that was my reasoning. And I rewatched the meeting. I was like, I didn't say anything about my reasoning behind that. So that was my reasoning then.
Okay, so to back that up, Aaron, this change would not fit with the comprehensive plan. Zoning changes should make the land better, not profit and own it. And that's why I agree with you. This should stay at an R5.
Okay. So if I can just add, as somebody who was on the original zoning of the properties, what we did is we followed the existing roadways. Everywhere and Beehive, all the properties around Beehive are R2. Those are R2 going up Beehive. This large lot in the middle is R5, and then everything beyond is R2. Everything surrounding is R2. So the methodology that we used was to follow the roads, anything that was on an existing road that wasn't AR3 or some other zoning district, but because of some other reason, we made them all R2. Now, my suspicion is this larger parcel, there is a section of it that is extremely steep slopes. Mr. Grasso has already stated that that is part of, there's a deed problem there. That piece is actually part of the neighboring lot, which will remain R5.
That's an 11-acre.
Yes.
Correct? Thank you.
So the current parcel that we're talking about is 35 acres, but 11 of it roughly, give or take a few, a percentage of an acre is going to go to the other property, which is a deed problem that he is not contesting. So the 24 acres remaining does not have the steep slopes. And I'm just stating the reason why this, it also, because Beehive ended there, it was not a continual flow. That is the likelihood of why it was R5. The way we did it is overlaid all the wetlands maps, and anywhere throughout the town that had considerable wetlands over a great portion of the property or had very steep slopes, we made those R5. So my feeling on this, because that section that is the steep slope will no longer be a portion of this parcel, it's now going to be part of the other parcel next to it, which will remain R5. That this would be appropriate with the extension of the town road. It has the physical features that met with the same criteria as the other R2 properties. Other than that steep slope, there is nothing, looking through parcel viewer, other than the low well yield, which can be potentially addressed. And it's a guess of an area. Obviously, he would have to do well tests to tell if he has enough yield or not. But my feeling is it meets the criteria of how we previously zoned R2 once you remove those 11 acres. If those 11 acres remained with this parcel, I would be on the same page as you two and say it's not appropriate.
Well, if there isn't, and we're gonna have Mr. Rosso do, and I apologize, my back. I apologize. If we're going to have him do water tests, why not allow him the R5? Then he doesn't have to worry about the rest of the property. And why not keep it R5?
Well, my feeling is we're being asked to review it from R2. Before I say it's not appropriate for R2, I would like to see some actual tests and data to say it's not appropriate for R2. And to me, that's why we move through the seeker process. At the end of seeker, we can say no, and it doesn't go to the planning board.
I
It's-
think we've got the cart before the horse, because I'm gonna tell you right now. Changing this goes totally against our comprehensive plan. Because you could harm the quality of water, water that you don't even know enough that you have. There is wetlands there, it's swamp. And Jeff, maybe I'm wrong, but doesn't Beehive Road go up a hill? It's not
No.
flat.
Yeah, it's flat.
I don't think so.
Well, I would rather an expert tell us that it's going to harm the wetlands rather than us deciding arbitrarily. If,
This isn't arbitrary. That's what I don't want to be, is arbitrary.
right, but let's,
Leave it the way it was zoned. And that way, you know, if it was zoned that way and you sat on the board and allowed it to be zoned that way,
with that 11
Work with
acres
it.
of steep slopes that are no longer part of this parcel.
but everything else is R5.
What do you mean everything else is R5? Everything surrounding this is R2,
Well, it's,
except for that little piece of Wicks, and I still can't figure out that. I believe that was an error. I
Well,
truly believe that little piece of Wicks was
all
an
these
error.
properties are.
To the other side,
Yeah.
on the steep slope side, which is going to remain R5. My point is, it's a continuation.
And it goes past Van Tine all the way to Sampson Road.
It comes out unseated, which is the question.
Right now, we have R2, and we have this section of R5, which is this parcel. It's not public, sorry, Mark. So, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the request for R2 and to move it forward seeker, pending our attorney's advisement on how we do seeker.
But couldn't we do seeker without the R2? Or with doing
Well, there'd be
seeker-
no point.
There's,
You don't need
we're not
to.
involved. If we don't rezone it, if it stays R5, we're done. If we say we're not gonna entertain this idea, then it's back to him. He can choose to do a 5-acre subdivision or not.
And then the planning board would do seeker.
And the planning
on
board would
that.
do seeker and review a subdivision. If we're gonna entertain I don't want to just decide, and I'm not dismissing what Mr. Davis said, but I don't want to decide on one letter. I want to see some factual information from wetlands experts, and seeker will do that. If we come out at the end of the day and seeker comes back and says, this is a bad idea, then I'll happily vote no against it. But I'm just not willing to and it's not a dismissing Mr. Davis at all. It's just saying, it's one piece of paper and it's visual observation. And this is why we have engineers and
Yeah, but
consultants.
it's one piece of paper from the man who paid to do that.
And he doesn't
Sorry.
typically do it. He usually doesn't weigh in. I think.
He does with zoning. He does in zoning, Mr. Davis.
Well, at the
That's
planning
an
board,
issue.
he does. Does he? I don't know when the last time we had a zoning
Well, it's been a long
amendment
time, but
request, right?
from
So I can
past,
tell you.
I can.
The
attest to
the
fact
last
that the
one we
building
had was
inspector weighs
for the horse farm on 4455,
Right.
where it was zoned. And the town
Yeah, I
board
thought that
worked
was
with
it.
the applicant to find other properties that would also be AR3 to make it work for the applicant. And we ended up with a pretty successful project scaled down from the original idea, but until the owner passed away, it was a successful project. So, but every piece of land is different.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, from my perspective, I'm not dismissing what Mr. Davis is saying. I just want to hear what wetlands experts say, what the DEC has to say, what the county planning board has to say, what
Health department.
the health department. There are many other sources of information.
I think
Which
that's
can
it.
be done with the R5 district.
If we, then we're just denying it and he goes through with us, if he wants to, with another subdivision. We're only weighing in whether we consider the R2 or not. So I'm not saying,
Am I misunderstanding it? Or-
I believe you are.
Excuse me, I don't.
Yeah, I believe you are, because,
R2 gives him the ability to subdivide into more lots.
correct. What I'm doing is saying we have a request in front of us.
Yes.
I want to know more information before I say no to the request. That's what I'm saying.
Then you're making him spend more money and do all this.
That's his choice. He can choose to say, I'm not going to do it. I withdraw my application. But I want to hear from the other experts. And I think that's the purpose of seeker. So that's my opinion. I'm one of four here tonight, so.
I think you have a good point, Mike. When we talked about me missing the last meeting of graduation, I thought it was gonna be a quick decision. It seemed quick. And then once I caught myself up, now it's more complicated. So I'd like to hear more about what Adam thinks at the next meeting.
We can take no action tonight and table it.
That might, well, I don't know what we would do if there was a time.
If there's a tie vote. it does not
You have to have
pass.
3 one way or the other. So if it's a
Even
2 to
if there
2
were
vote, there's no action taken.
Right, right,
So if it's a 2 to 2 vote, you have to have
right, right.
Have a quorum.
We
we have a quorum. We can
Yeah, yeah,
vote. We can
All
vote.
the vote.
Okay.
We have a motion, we don't have a second.
Do I have a second for my motion? You want to read it back, Kate, because it's been a while.
That Supervisor Baden accepts the request of the R2 and to move forward with secret review.
Or the town board, not Supervisor Baden, sorry.
Supervisor
Oh,
moves
not
that.
You made the motion.
So is there a second on that motion? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion the opposite way?
I just think we table it.
I make a motion that we take a vote of this board, whether to have Mr. Grasso, or we allow Mr. Grasso to go forward with the R2, or indeed say not today and keep him at R5. Is that the proper motion, Mary Lou?
Well,
Give me more words.
The motion would be to
so
not
your motion
the
would
motion is
be
not to
to
entertain-
deny the,
deny the request.
deny the
That's
application.
essentially what it
The
is.
R2, yes.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
I'm not seconding because I have a feeling I know how the vote would go.
I know exactly how the vote's gonna go, and I know how it'll go 3 weeks from today, but that's okay. It's not anything.
If somebody
I have
wants
say
to second, if there's no second, there's no vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll second it.
Okay. Kate, I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote.
Councilwoman Allen,
I,
Councilman Hagen DePew,
No, or I on the motion, yes. I'm thinking of it still. the way
Councilman
Mike
Hewitt.
Aye.
Councilman Paddock's absent, Supervisor Baden.
No. Okay, we have a 3 to 1. The motion is, motion passes and the application is denied. Thank you very much.
Still, I would like to put this on the record. Mr. Grasso still has everything within his power to go to the planning board to take this on. This was not to stop the project in its entirety at all. It was merely not, it was just to keep it where it should be.
Am I allowed to speak?
No,
I don't
No.
think so.
no. Okay, thank you very much. Since we're putting things on the record, I would just like to say I think we owe our citizens the opportunity to explore what they're proposing rather than just denying it. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, moving forward, the copy machine contract. Our copy machine with Xerox expires October. I have gotten 2 quotes from 2 different vendors. Kyocera, which is through a company called Advanced Office Technology, which is in Brewster, New York, and Toshiba, which is based out of Poughkeepsie. Oh,
I have 2.
well, there's 2 that say investment schedule,
Okay.
and one is dated June 14th and one is dated June 25th. So make sure you realize, so let me walk you through it. The AOT original proposal came in, and that is the top copy that is dated April 21st. That one was the original proposal. The June 14th Toshiba came in. They offered in it 2 proposals. One is, after talking with the town clerk and the people in this building, it became really obvious that having the feature of a letter tray. So,
This is the old one, this is the
yeah,
new one.
you want me to walk you
I
through?
thought I did.
You want me to walk you through what you should have?
I think Chris is missing something, that's why
Okay,
he's-
so there's a front and back, which is this just description of their equipment.
I see it's all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then there's a AOT dated April 21st and an AOT dated June 24th.
Which one are we
2 different
missing?
proposals. They're 2 different proposals. Then we have, and I'm going to go through the differences in them. Then we have a Toshiba June 14th and a Toshiba June 25th. So you have 4 different proposals, and this single page document is just a description of the machine. So what happened, Kyocera came in first with their proposal based on our usage. Toshiba came in June and talked with, and they presented 2 different pricing options. One is for exactly what we have now, and one is an upgrade to, which would include a 300 sheet feeder, 550 sheet paper feed pedestal, a 550 sheet drawer. The key is the envelope drawer module, the bridge kit, the saddle stitch finisher. If we were doing a booklet, it will essentially bind it for you. And the nice one is the hole punch. We don't have to load 3 hole punch paper. We can just put it in. Knowing that their proposal was different than Kyocera, I went back to Kyocera and said, another quote came in with different features. Will you provide us a quote matching those features? So that's what the June 24th one is from Kyocera. It's matching the second quote from the Toshiba of June 14th. Everybody's on the same page so far?
Kyocera and June 14th.
Right. Then I discovered that, and I did not realize this, Kyocera was quoting us prices for 7,000 pages as part of the base. So,
Anything above that, you pay extra.
correct. And they were doing that based on the average monthly of 2,000 pages. Our current lease is 2,400 per machine, but they aren't combined as one contract. So if normally we use more than 2,400 black and white on one machine and it's on the other. What both of these companies are proposing is merging the contract as one. So we get either 4,800 pages for the month or 7,000 pages for the month between the 2 machines.
That's Toshiba and Kyocera.
Right, so the reason I had Toshiba come back a second time with the June 25th is I realized Kyocera was saving 7,000 pages per month. Toshiba was saying 4,800. So I apologize for the various steps, but I really wanted it to be an apples to apples comparison. We don't have to decide tonight. You can certainly look through everything, ask questions. We don't, it's not high enough that it has to go out to bids. It doesn't, 2 quotes is under our procurement policy. You can certainly look if you have questions that you want to ask. Now, both companies have offered to buy out our remaining contract for the remaining months. Say, for example, we said, we're going to hire you and sign a contract starting August 1st. They will buy out, they will bring a new machine, they will buy out, pay us for the 2 months remaining of the Xerox contract to buy us out of the Xerox. They will, both companies also offer, they will come get the existing machines. They will take them away and do one of 2 things, either deliver them directly to Xerox or put them in a warehouse until October 1st comes and then deliver them to Xerox. So both companies are offering that service. It's apparently it's like the cell companies buying you out of your contract. So, and that would be on a monthly basis. So if we went with them with September 1st, they would pay for 1 month. I also will tell you, Xerox ironically called me the other day to say, hey, we noticed your contract's coming up due. And I informed the woman, based on our customer service experience these last 5 years, we won't be renewing. And she put up 0 fight. She just said, okay, thank you. I will notate it on your account. And that was the end of conversations. So Xerox doesn't seem to really, and their customer service has been that way. I mean, Kate can tell you how many days, weeks we go with the machine not working, waiting for a repair guy. The final straw was they assigned us to a repair guy who had retired. And they didn't know their own repair guy retired. They job it out. And they kept saying, we've jobbed it out. And the guy's name was Tom. He always used to love to come to us. He came from Albany. He'd always say, I love coming down to Rochester. We were wondering what happened to Tom. Tom's living in Florida. Tom retired 3 months ago and Xerox didn't even know it. And we waited 2.5 weeks to get our machine fixed while they were telling us, Tom's coming to fix your machine. And I said,
It's a long drive.
we're done. We're done. So,
He gave up his car, he's hitchhiking.
yeah,
So it's gonna be 2.5 weeks.
anyway,
So like to be perfectly clear, we're doing the June 24, 2021 Kaya Sarah and the June 25th, 2021 Toshiba.
if we want to go with the 7,000 pages.
That's what I'm saying.
If
Okay,
we
that's-
think- And I will note that even the most expensive pricing is probably cheaper than what we're paying now. So I'll put that out there too. I realize it's a little complicated. I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight, but you might want to just look it all over. If you come up with any questions you want me to ask either vendor, I'm happy to. It's
Oh, how long is your quote?
That's a good question. They did know the date of our expiration and I don't see a note anywhere that it expires. So I'm going to assume, I will tell you, the AOT, this gentleman has been calling me for about 1.5 years saying, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. And he finally came in the spring and I said, okay, now let's talk about a quote. And then at the board's request, I reached out to Fish. Fish recommended Toshiba
Okay.
and put me in contact with Toshiba. They put me in contact with their Dutchess County rep, who put me in contact with their Ulster County rep, who came, and both companies have come and talked to all the employees. The AOT guy, I don't think came over to this building, but the other guy did. And Kate, I don't know, do you want to add anything in this? Because you use the machine more than anybody else.
I only met with the Toshiba guy, I didn't meet with the other company. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to find a different copy company to work with, because there's been many a time, but
How will the copy, the amount of copies affect you? You will be better off, you won't use it, so therefore you'll stay under.
Right, if
I don't think we go through 7,000.
No, we're
That's a lot.
doing about 5,500 black and white between the two machines.
so you're
Yeah.
going over.
We're going over the
48.
4,800.
Yes, that's
But
what I'm saying.
the point is,
Yeah.
the 7,000 allows us a little room for expansion. And bear in mind that the envelope drawer, which is an ad that both have now put in.
Well,
That's a huge-
Great thing.
That's but those will count as copies. We're not doing those right now.
understand. That's why I'm.
So I
looking
think
at
the 7,000 is probably the
Kate's willing to
realistic.
hire monks to write everything out.
The guy told me he's gonna find a little coffee maker to put in there.
Yeah.
Make your coffee.
The 7,000, because of the envelopes.
Right. And I tell you, the saddle stitch feature, if you wanted to do it, if you had a program for a booklet, if you had an 11 by 17 page, it will fold it for you. It will staple it. We already talked about possibly being able to do the recreation brochures that we send out to Stedners right now.
Yeah.
We could probably, they're a single fold. He's like, you could do these in-house, no problem.
My other thing was your hole punch.
That's big.
One me on that too.
Yeah. Now, that's why I went back to AOT and asked them to bid the same apples to apples. And I have to admit, I didn't even really sit down and put the 4 prices side by side yet myself. They're all pretty close.
It's a 5-year lease.
They're both 5-year leases, because that's what we currently have, and we want to match it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. So think about it. We don't have to decide tonight. We got essentially, we have to give Xerox officially a 30-day notice. But essentially, we did give them the notice, but we have to send them a letter.
Okay, this is another question. Do we know? Do the faxes count as copies? Outgoing?
I don't believe so, because it's not printing.
Yeah,
Oh.
we don't usually.
We
have
don't
our
usually,
fax
we don't
machine
fax
connected
from
to
there
that.
anyway.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking that
Yeah.
question.
That's a good
Does it
question.
count as page?
And he did say to me, since we had a fax machine, he wasn't including that.
Yeah.
I was reading the bottom. It's a little extra.
AOT may have included the fax, but because we use the fax machine and not this.
That's fine, but
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
brought it up, because
Yep.
if it counts, then you're using more
Yeah.
copies. That's why.
I don't think we're ever gonna exceed this, well, the 7,000 is doable.
Yeah.
The 4,800 is not, we exceed that every single month by a few pages. Usually,
This is
100
strictly
to
black and
200.
white, no copy, no color at all.
the color is all by page
I see
pricing,
that.
but it's
That's how it is
cheaper than what we're paying right now. I can get you the current contract, which I
was just
didn't
curious
include in the
because it says
package.
Toshiba says color copier full, 0 pages included. And it's 5 cents. a copy.
Right, and the other one is similar. The other one is based on
Okay, that's overages.
he says, so he gave us a financial overview. Where does he say someone, it's somewhere it says so much per page.
Overages are billed.
Here it is.
Color.
Color, on page number 3 of the April 21, says color page is not included or billable monthly or quarterly at 0.55 cents per page. So 5.5 cents.
And who was that? Because I didn't.
That's the
even have that.
Kyocera. It's
I'm
on
Looking at the Kyocera dated.
April 21st.
24.
So the June 24th, it's on there too, on the June 24th.
Yes,
It's
it
on
is.
the,
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to keep the 2 dates close. 'cause
Yeah.
They seem to be close in.
Yeah.
Similarity.
the June 24th is more expensive because it's including the envelope drawer and the, I asked him to be comparable to the other.
Toshiba has an envelope drawer also.
Yeah, Toshiba is what began the discussion because Toshiba offered it and the 3-hole punch. So I went back to Kyocera and said, can you price this for us? So B, that's the difference in the Kyocera. The difference between the 2 pricings is the envelope drawer and the 3-hole punch and the binding. If you, so the difference in price for the 60-month lease is $41 between the Kyocera for those extra features. And the difference in price for the Toshiba between the two is,
It's not the Toshiba. I don't want to say the price.
the difference between the two and Toshiba is $16 between the two different. Well, that's just adding the more copies.
Now, we have to settle on a page and work with pages.
Well, I think what,
$326.95 for 7,000 copies plus
right,
the drawer, the envelope drawer, the saddle stitch, the whole
Right.
punch, the whole McGill.
right.
Okay.
And the Kyocera says $314.65 for the same,
For the same exact, that's
yeah. And with the fax, it's $329.
right, which we said we weren't.
We don't need.
need.
So it's $12 difference between the two. And it's a matter of just deciding which company we like better.
Kate only spoke with Toshiba. Mike, you spoke with both.
I spoke with both.
And our
And our IT
suggested-
recommended Toshiba, but I didn't necessarily tell them who we spoke with first. I just said, do you have a company that you recommend for copying? And they immediately said, this is who we deal with. So,
And they also gave a list of references. You could always
Yeah.
call around.
yeah, they both did. I don't know if
Did we
AOT,
ask the question, how much does Fish get for selling Toshiba?
no,
It's a valid question.
yeah, I don't know if they get anything. I doubt they do. They just say that that's who they recommend.
Well, if they're recommending it, there's got to be a reason.
How much do
Sorry.
these printers cost?
You don't want to get into the maintenance of it.
You
We
know?
get all the
Okay.
supplies for free.
Yeah, Yeah.
You don't want to buy it.
Newbie question.
Yeah.
No, no,
I'm
Brian.
revealing my.
No, that's a Brian
That's a
question.
Brian.
That's a Brian
That
question.
was a good question.
If we buy it, then we are
Yeah.
repairing it. We are
And it-
buying
and it will break
supplies.
the next day.
Right. And printers are horrible. We just
Yeah.
had this conversation about how horrible
Yeah.
printers are. so-
And with both of these contracts, we get all our supplies free.
Yeah.
Minus staples and those things. Those we gotta pay for.
Yeah.
So,
But are you tabling this anyway?
yeah.
I just wanted, I know after all this. I
Are you
knew
gonna
that,
have the same conversation next time?
I
'Cause
hope not.
but No,
Look it over and maybe at our workshop meeting, we can have an answer. Look it over in the next 2 weeks. If you come up with questions, let me know. Next, the assessor position, obviously, because we didn't interview tonight, we probably doesn't make any sense to have a conversation about it. Unless somebody has a strong feeling one way or the other, and I think we want to talk to some of these people first, so. The pavilion for the caucus, I seem to have lost my page, but, oh, here it is. So we had a request from the chairman of the Republican Party to schedule a caucus at our town pavilion. Kate just said she wanted to bring it to us since we have our policy of $50 to use it, and a $50 deposit. I'm just going to go out and say, I'd like to make a resolution. We waive the $50 fee. How does the board feel about the deposit? Do we want the deposit anyway, or we just waive both?
Why do you want to wait?
What I'm proposing is that what we have always done is we've never charged not-for-profit organizations or political organizations for using our space.
Yeah, they've held.
We're only
both
charging
parties
for
have
birthday
lost
parties
their-
and things like that. So I'm proposing that we waive the fee for this, and then we can always amend our policy on a more broad level later. But I'm gonna make the motion, we waive the fee. I'm on the fence about the deposit. I'll go either direction with that, but I'm
What's the deposit?
50. And it's returnable if there's no damage. I don't anticipate there's gonna be any damage from a caucus. It's different than a birthday party or, I'll make that motion then, that we waive.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, Kate, you can let them know. Next is we received a request from a woman who would like to use our pavilion to teach a Sunday morning yoga class. It's back part of this syllabus holistic. She sort of told us who she is and what she does, but the back part is the class that she's asking for. 10 to 20 participants weekly tentatively on Sunday mornings. She would like it to be an ongoing thing. I did talk to her briefly about possibly talking to Ashley about doing it as a town-sponsored thing. She thought she wanted to try it this way first to see what kind of, she has been doing it, of all places, in New Paltz on Friday evenings in a park somewhere in New Paltz, right, Friday evenings, right at the heart of traffic. Because I said to her, I said,
That's when you need meditation.
yeah, I said, in the pavilion, we can't guarantee that nobody else is going to be around. And she said, that's okay. We've been doing it in New Paltz at rush hour traffic. So my question is, do we want to allow her to do it on an ongoing basis? She's willing to pay the fee. She's not asking for a waiver of the fee. I just, before we said we're going to allow somebody to do it on a regular basis, I wanted to bring it to the board.
My question is, does she have some kind of certificate? of
She does.
And
And I told her that would be mandatory and she has no problem. Through her teachings, she has a insurance liability waiver.
That's-
does she charge for these?
She does.
classes? So that's another question. Do you
Yeah.
want to rent out the pavilion?
She
for
does.
somebody to have a business?
That's the question, if we want to allow it or not.
I'm in favor of it.
It's a Sunday morning. I doubt there's a lot of use. And she says tentatively Sunday mornings. That was her preference.
So,
And honestly, I
Remember,
think
you're
it's a,
setting a precedent.
To
right,
be consistent with it, or because she's making money.
well,
Right,
both.
that she's really, doing a
Creating a
business
business.
out of the on town.
we have allowed other people to use spaces for money-making events,
Have we?
both private business, but not necessarily on an ongoing basis.
Right.
They're one-offs.
Right, this is,
To continue how long? That's the
Well,
other question.
she said she wants to see how it goes. Now, what I would suggest is maybe we say it for a period of time so we can both have an out.
can I ask Kate some questions?
Sure.
Since you're the one that usually handles these.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? How will this impact the availability of the pavilion for?
It depends on the time of day, and I'm thinking Sunday morning, if it's before 10 o'clock, I don't think it would affect any park rental.
She's not offering a time.
No, but we could.
She was
suggest
talking
the time.
approximately that time. We could say,
I
She
think
said open to
anytime from like
discussion.
11 o'clock on, you would take a chance of somebody wanting the park.
so if we ask her to be done by 11, then she can set it whatever time she wants, as long as she's done by, I'm just throwing it out for discussion. And we could also say, let's allow it for a 2-month period and circle back to it and see if it's an issue.
Do any limitation, maybe just that, if we do 2 months, does that set a precedent and make us, that we've done it? What I'm saying is like, sometimes it's 60 days, 90 days, 120.
Yeah, no,
whatever,
I
that
don't
sets a-
think,
sets
I
a
don't think
precedent.
it's gonna say, that means, it's gonna be a forever thing.
Well, that's
I'm
why
just
asking,
concerned, what
once-
about the next person who says, oh, that's a great place to do meditation and
Once we
yoga?
allow it, are we then opening a can of
Once you
worms?
allow it for one, that's,
Or do you want me to ask her to
Go
talk
ahead.
to Ashley about sponsoring it as a town event, and then we would pay her,
Like the golden thing.
like we do,
Yeah,
like we
that-
do the line dancing. We pay and we collect $2 a person, which basically covers Goldie's costs.
yeah.
But the
I-
problem
I-
is with that is, if we're gonna do that, then we have to have somebody who's
Willing to go in. on
doing that
Sunday.
on a Sunday morning
Mhm.
to make sure that money's being collected and counted and. Or we just, or the other way is, essentially, that's what we're doing though, by charging her a fee, is she's paying us the $50. And whatever she charges, and that's her call. It's almost a similar thing. We're not giving it to her for free.
No, but
No, you're not, but I'm guessing, it's nice to bring a birthday present to the birthday party, but you don't charge people
No.
after you pay your $50 fee.
No.
We have, but in the past, there have been people that have reserved.
What have we done? Yeah,
The
what have we done
pavilion
that?
for business purposes,
I'm trying to think. I know,
because it's not in the we don't say.
no,
I would almost think that if you were allowing somebody to do a business there, that you'd have a different fee for them
well, we could do that too. We
You
could
know,
establish a
in
different
your
fee.
pavilion fee.
Yeah.
But how are you gonna pick and choose if somebody else wants to do it? And,
Agreed.
boy, it's tough.
It's tough because it's a community, kind of a community event. And,
But for whose community? If she can't get quiet in New Paltz, is that why she's coming here?
no, she's just is trying to expand.
I think,
She's got a lot, what she said to me is she has a lot of people from this side of the ridge who are looking for something on this side of the ridge.
yeah,
And so she's trying to find a location. I think she said she was here one day and thought it was a beautiful site and thought this would be
It's a great
great.
spot for it.
It's much more conducive to meditation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I'm still wondering if we're gonna have a
I can
precedence,
go
and
back
that's
to her and
what's
say, would you consider doing this through the recreation department? And then we could do exactly what we do with Goldie and the other
Then we have
classes.
to pay someone to be there. So
One precedent I just thought of is this is a very gentle meditation thing. What if someone wanted to start a fight club and they're making
Right.
money on that? Then we have a judgment call.
Yeah,
Well, but we can rent to whoever we want to, right, Mary Lou? We don't have to
Well-
rent to anybody, do we? I'm asking.
well, that's what I was wondering with the
That's-
contract. It
That's,
doesn't
that's what
outlaw.
yeah. I just, you're setting a precedent,
Okay.
you're setting that fight club fighting with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna be good at it.
So,
Well-
but can I
this
ask
is gentle.
uh,
This is-
a legal question? So our agreement is I, the undersigned, as a representative of the listed individual, organization, or group. That's the only.
Yeah, because it was designed. to-
Oh, provided the town part is not used in use, oh, never mind. So the only thing that we're saying that you can't do is have alcohol basically or disrupt. There's nothing in this contract that gives us any way of saying who and who are not,
Well, individual organization.
except for that, I would say if it's a business, but this might be a DBA, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess, what's your purpose in this pavilion and?
To provide someone a place to hold maybe an anniversary party. This is my take on it. Birthday parties, family events.
Right, but
Pizza party for town employees if we wanted to.
Mhm.
I don't know,
Community
things like that.
Yeah.
well,
I mean,
community
if you're talking
gatherings,
about-
but we also, if we have a space that people can meet in, I mean, we offer, like just last night, no, sorry, Tuesday night, the Pine Bush Cemetery Association needed a public space to meet, and they
Yeah.
met here. Now that's a not-for-profit group.
Right.
Right.
The same with the political groups, the same with, if the Lions Club wanted to use our space, we would allow them.
Of course.
I think to me, the difference, though.
This is a for-profit.
Well, the main difference for me is the frequency of it being a weekly thing. And
Yeah.
like, that to me is actually,
It's almost like you're renting out
Yeah.
Well, that's why maybe it's better I go back to her and say, we'd
and
like
maybe wait.
to do it as the town sponsors the class. And we
But
do it
it
through
might not
us.
be a weekly class. We'd have to decide, right?
Well, it's whatever she wants to do, and we just pay her for the services, and then we collect the money. We have to figure out what the price is of what we pay her. We have to come to an agreement.
or
The-
we approve
The
one
two,
and,
right now, the only one we actually pay for is the line dancing. The yoga class and the exercise class, the seniors pay the instructors themselves. We collect money, but the seniors pay the instructors. Now admittedly, a lot of that money for the seniors comes from us in the first place.
Right.
We give that
So the
money.
group pays.
The group
not
pays.
the individual.
No, the
seniors
group
pay.
pays.
The group pays. If If you're leasing property, it's subject to a permissive referendum. This is just almost sounding like
Okay,
leasing if she's coming every week at a
And we
certain
don't
time.
know how long.
so let me go back to her and ask if she'll explore it with Ashley. I'll put the two of them into contact with each
Yeah,
other
see
and
if-
then we'll go from there.
And let her just know the,
It's
the
just that
legal
we
parameters
can't lease it
around-
out to a business.
Yeah.
And I'll
It's like
just
we're
say that.
becoming the landlord.
Yeah,
And I'm fine, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to give her an answer.
I mean, it
She was
is
very
a
nice.
fantastic
Yeah,
place for
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It really is.
And
Oh,
if we can
yeah.
encourage her, great. It's
Right.
another aspect for our people. So,
I said I could use some meditation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Could you have it from like 8 to 4 in the
we
clerk's
we
office?
could just, the town board could decide to just buy all the slots for her.
okay,
Yeah.
so that brought up, Kate asked me, do we have a policy for the community center now that we're back open? And I said, you know what, we don't.
Mhm.
So what I'm gonna propose to the board is to take the town park pavilion agreement and just everywhere it says Park Pavilion, put in Harold Lipton Community Center with the same. The only one that would come out is number 3. Because if they're renting the pavilion, the park, the community center, they have the use of the community center. We can't share groups in here. But I would make this be the exact same with the deletion of 3.
Water and sewer and electric.
The only thing I would add, I don't know what's on that list,
Oh,
they have use of the kitchen.
yeah, use of the
That's right.
kitchen, but no use of the, and we have had that in the past. They have use of the kitchen, but not use of any of the facilities. And we, before we rented it out, we will make sure to get the door back on its hinges
The
and.
reason
be
I
able
was
to lock
asking,
that.
because you're utilizing water and electric. You may
It's,
have electric at the pavilion.
Yeah, they have-
in
they
Rosedale,
have
if
water
you're
and
using the
water.
kitchen at the rec center.
They have
Well, we
the-
do
It's
pay
an
for
extra
Johnny
charge.
on the spot.
Okay.
The only thing I would think a little more here is if they use the oven.
Mhm.
I don't know if you'd want to maybe do 75, 50 here.
I'll tell you
rather
what
than
then.
50.
let's table this too, since it's getting late and we'll,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
talk about this at the
But-
workshop.
I like your idea of different uses of the building,
Yeah.
get different prices.
It's just
like-
hard to
yeah.
monitor because once they're in the building, you know, if they use the oven and
The
nobody's
reason
here,
I
who's
say
gonna
that is
know?
because if you go to a campground with a tent, you may
Yeah.
pay $10 a
Yeah.
night, but if you go with a camper, you're gonna pay 50.
Well,
Right,
we'd
'cause
have
you
to do it
use
on the
the
honor system, and I
facilities, yeah.
think most people would.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of times it's groups, and we would
Right.
have to decide if we're, you know, not-for-profit groups, if we're waiving the use of the
Yeah, think about that.
the
when
fee
you
or
go
not.
there.
So think about those things and
Okay.
let's talk about it at the next, I don't mean, we're getting close to 10 here, so.
I rent my kitchen in Kingston, and it's just the space, it's cheap, and if they use the kitchen.
It's more, right?
Yeah.
And they check a box. and use
Yeah.
the kitchen.
And that's all, they check the box and they pay $25 more or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's, yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
They need more insurance.
The last thing here on the list. Now, the liability is the liability, I think. I don't think
Is
they
it?
need more insurance, do they?
I wouldn't think so,
No.
but
Okay.
The liability
Just
is
a
like $1
question.
million policy, so,
Oh,
we should be
okay.
covered.
yeah.
I don't know though, with the cost of one.
We got this, it went down 40% I just saw in June. I'm not believing it, but it went down. The cost of raw materials actually went down, is what it said. So we got this letter about requesting a waiver of the fire inspection fee, asking it to be grandfathered in. It's a little circular. The only question I have is, I do understand that they used to be zone, or they say zone commercial. It's not a matter of whether they're in the B district, but whether the use is commercial or not commercial. I believe the use now is residential. So what I could do is go back to Jerry and ask him about the use, because the letter that they received on the back, the very back page, it said for all non-residential commercial buildings at once every 12 months. So I could just ask Jerry if the use was changed to commercial, residential, excuse me,
Mhm.
and it just didn't get changed in our books for some reason.
Does it matter the split of the building? How much is what?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. And because it is,
How much is being used for business? How much is
Yeah,
being
and I don't
used
know.
for
But as
residential?
far as the fee, we raised our fees because they were extremely low and hadn't been raised in years. So
Mhm.
as far as the fee, I'm not willing to entertain, me personally, I'm not willing to entertain grandfathering the old fee in, but I do understand the question about the residential versus commercial, and that would be a question only the building department can answer.
Mhm.
So do you want me to go
Building
to them,
department or the assessor.
get more information from them, and then,
Or even, like, they know that to do,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And what about his point about how to get it closed during COVID? Is that when
So did everybody else.
So everybody-
If we start
What
opening
was
that
it?
door,
you pay everyone?
That's what you're gonna use that Recovery Act money for.
yeah.
um,
And we can. One of the things we can do with that recovery is to make
Fund available.
funds available to businesses who can apply, and we would have to set a criteria for how we award the money. It's one of the many things we can use. So I would just want clarification. Should we make any resolution now to not entertain the idea of grandfathering and just,
why don't we-
Well, if you're
We
gonna
should
look
just
at
wait.
it more, just
Yeah.
wait, do everything together.
okay,
Okay, so I know I said I no attorney, but seeing as we're here anyway, and I'm the attorney.
Well-
On the Hidden Forest Estates,
oh,
that,
you can talk about this in public, okay?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we have a letter from Jerry
Good night,
talking
Jeff.
about.
Thank you.
Right, talking about some violations, and asking us to look into that. The way our law reads, the letter actually, in the case of a manufactured home park, comes from the town board, not from the building department. So you may want to consider writing a letter that gives them 15 days to correct the violations. If they correct the violations, great. If they don't, then you can hold a hearing to determine whether or not to revoke their license.
I'm sorry, can you remind me who owns this?
I don't know who
I don't
owns it,
know
but
who owns it.
I don't know
thought
who
it was
owns it.
Spelled out somewhere.
Well, we got a letter back in April
Right,
from Mr. Davis about violations in
Mhm.
there. And he said they did make some improvement on some of the trees, but not enough to his satisfaction. So,
And the roadways, I think.
yeah,
is
and the roadways too. And I
That's a
apologize, I
concern.
didn't reprint the letter, but he brought it to our attention. And as Mary Lou says, it's up to us to sit because it's a manufactured housing park permit, which we administer. So it's up to us to write the letter to ask them, make them cure the violations. What I would do is send the letter, reference Terry's violations, and give them, as Mary Lou said, 15 days to,
Right, and the letters from the town board.
yeah. So we would need a resolution authorizing the supervisor to send a letter to the
Not to
owners.
send a letter, it's
Oh,
got to be personally served, so I would
Okay,
recommend you use
personally
the
served, okay.
constables to do that.
Okay. So to personally serve a letter to the owners of Hidden Forest Estates.
Yeah,
do they live there? Do-
I will
I
have
don't
to
know.
figure that
Yeah, I
out,
know.
but
yeah, if they don't, we maybe.
if we
paying
don't, we hire a
process.
process server if we have to,
That's what
so.
I'm asking.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know we
But it's still the
asked-
same resolution either way, of
Yeah.
how we do it, so.
Yep.
So to personally serve notice,
Yep, of the violations and give them
so
15
you're,
days to
so
cure.
you're authorizing the supervisor to,
No, it's a letter from the town board.
okay,
Obviously, the supervisor's gonna do it.
okay. Why don't you
But-
make the resolution, because you know what it needs.
Okay, let's have a
Kate.
resolution to personally serve the owner of Hidden Forest Estates with a letter. Pull up the law to get the right language. Don't put that in, Kate. Because we can say, I can even reference the code section. Code section. It's manufactured homes under zoning, right? Not manufactured. Manufactured housing parks. Okay, so instead of the owner, we're gonna put the holder of the license. What we're gonna serve is a written order. Require them to correct the conditions specified in Jerry's, in Mr. Davis's letter to the board within 50 days, 15 days
15.
after the service of the order. So Kate, if you want to read it back and I'll fix it because that was kind of disjointed.
She got it.
She probably did. She's amazing.
Okay, so personally serve the holder of the license a written order requiring them to
Just
correct
got
the
it.
specified violations issued by the code enforcement officer within 15 days. Is it 15 days of receipt?
15 days
After
after service
service.
of the order. And instead of saying issued by the code enforcement officer, but specified by the code enforcement officer in his letter dated
April something.
April something. You sent that to us before the special meeting in June, right?
I think I first gave it to Ruby in April.
Possibly, but June's closer on
but-
my list here. Let me go back up files. You sent me a lot of stuff, Mr. Bates.
I know I do. Oh, I know where I have it in violations. We played this game before.
Got it. April 8th.
April 8th.
I win.
April 6th,
Oh, it's dated.
April 6th.
See our request for it.
The letter I have, I'm looking at the letter.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong request. I'm looking at the request for an additional.
Yeah. April
You
6th,
sent a lot of
2021.
requests in April. That was what Jerry
Yeah.
did in April.
April 2020. It's Hidden Forest MHP LLC. And the address is a PO box in Brooklyn.
Do you-
Just,
Do you
We'll
want to
find them.
list the name or just the holder of the license? Or do you want to put holder of the license Hidden Forest?
Just put holder of the license
Okay.
and then we can
okay,
look at the license to make sure that it hasn't
okay.
changed or anything.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
That took longer than the copy
All in
machine.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. One other, Aaron, regarding the transfer station vacancies, and I'm sorry, Jeff just left, but we did advertise for 2 positions. One is a transfer station clerk, who will be primarily the office and the window. The other is a transfer station laborer. What Aaron and I talked about is we'd like to ask the board to allow Aaron and Jeff and I to do interviews and make a recommendation back to the town board rather than the entire town board doing interviews.
What this member of the town board wants to see before anybody's interviewed is a full job description of what they're gonna do there. so they can be told exactly what they're going to do. Because that's been a bone of contention.
Okay.
Is that
And
the
Aaron, you were gonna put that together,
Mhm,
right? So-
yeah.
Because that has come up too many times from people who have left. They did not know what they were to do,
Okay,
and it was not made clear to them what they were to do. So I would like to see, before we interview anybody, what their job description is.
I'll try to get that.
It doesn't have, I don't think this particularly comes from civil service. This could be.
Yeah,
No, it
it's
doesn't
our-
come
it's
from
an
civil service. It's an internal-
That's correct.
they're a laborer, but
Job duties, I think is
Yes.
what we're.
So-
supposed to say.
given the situation though, and we're not gonna meet again now that we know of until the end of the month. Is that something the board needs to approve, or if Aaron circulates something, will the board allow us to do a resolution to conduct these interviews? Because
Pending,
Because as you're interviewing them, they
Yeah.
need to be reading these.
I'm not
jobs.
disagreeing with that, but I'm saying we don't want to wait a
No,
month.
I understand. You don't want to wait
Yeah.
another month.
so
Shorthand.
pending,
Pending.
circulation of,
Right.
job duties.
So what I'm asking though,
You want it to be done through the computer once we've read it to respond back.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking
Yeah.
for.
If-
I-
if-
Well,
is
wait,
that
no,
I
then you're having a meeting.
okay,
Oh,
then we'll have to call, then Aaron get it and we'll have to call a special meeting because
Okay.
we need to, we can't wait a month to get interviews, so
Maybe by then you'll have that resolution for the other. Maybe needed.
maybe.
Oh,
So-
yeah,
The greenery.
And we may have the AUD by then too.
So I'll
that
try
would be
to,
nice.
Order a
That's my
copy.
favorite thing.
It's almost
What else you got?
Annual update doc.
that close to being done.
all right.
Okay, so, so we
So
want,
I've
so
got two 14-hour days ahead of me, and then I'll get that to you guys by the
that's
end
fine.
of Saturday or Sunday
Um,
morning.
I will worry to death.
Are,
if I don't have to.
just a quick poll, are people available next Thursday, the 8th, if we needed to have a special meeting that night?
I can be.
It seems to be the night that has fallen in as availability for people in general.
I can be.
Okay.
I believe you cannot.
I can.
You can.
Okay, and
If
we,
you want me there, I can be there.
I don't know
Want
if
me
we'll
there,
need you
good.
there.
I
I
think
don't know
it's
if
just-
we'll need you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
There's
okay.
nothing-
I see you on.
The executive session is not needed because there's nothing new to
We don't have the
report.
stuff.
Okay.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
well, somebody want to read the list?
Oh, yes. Adjourning. I make a motion to adjourn in memory of Adrian Lovish, Ruth Halsted, Maria Moraz, Sally Ann Carl, Carlena Palmetier, Phyllis Greco, Christina Connor, Stephen Riley, Michael Hines, Lori Hood, Robert Morph, and all suffering worldwide from the COVID-19 virus.
I just wanted to add, I added Robert Morph, who is a resident of Kingston, but he is a gentleman who's worked in the entertainment business for years in this region, and I've worked with him many, many, many years, and sadly, he died from a motorcycle accident. So,
There is someone else who has,
please,
but we can wait.
no, if you want to add another name, please do.
Mr. Harley Williams.
Okay, thank you. I try to keep track during the month
I
and
know.
get as many as I can, and it's,
Just
yeah,
passed Before the end.
okay, thank you. So, yeah, if we'd add that name. So, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Hi.
Thanks, Mike.
And my
Appreciate
computer is
Who's gonna
fully
be
charged.
getting all the scratch off tickets from PX now?
I know.
That man would drive to all
Oh,
the stores and buy
really?
scratch off
I know.
tickets all day.
That's funny.
He had like a strategy in place.
You won too.
Do you want to take cameras and stuff, or how do we want to do it?
Yeah, what's the next meeting?
Well, the next meeting really is,
Or do you want to stop the stream?
oh, yeah.